I stare at her, something constricting in my chest that might just be my heart. The thought of thanking her for driving a sword through my father's chest may be the cruelest thing I've ever considered, and yet each scar scattering my body sings with the memory of cold hands and hot anger. One of my many masks, a reminder of the man who molded them. Maybe I should be thanking her. I don't remember loving him when he was alive, but now? Are you ready for this, Andrew? You're about to take like a multi-hit combo right to the frontal cortex. Does death divulge deep-rooted devotion?
Holy shit.
I can't seem to differentiate grief out of love and guilt out of the lack thereof. We even got a slant rhyme.
That was good.
We're spoiled.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SBU English Club podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jay.
And we don't have a single opening bit because we will probably be here for the rest of the night. We have a monumental task ahead of us. A good friend of ours, Lauren Roberts, has returned somehow with 2 books where she used to only have 1. We read the first in her trilogy called Powerless. It was really nice. You know, it did a lot of good things. It did a lot of things that drove me insane. And it left me mostly satisfied with the story that I was told. We tackled it in a very interesting way, and I completely blame our supporters for this, whose idea this was, that one of us will read book 2, and the other one will read book 3. You know, just in the interest of time. You know, Lauren's about to go into summer break. She's got to pick up a job at Cold Stone Creamery for gas money. You know, she's about to be very busy, so we want to be as efficient as possible and give her the feedback that she needs so that she can rescue this very promising book series from a fate that is literally unimaginable.
Word on the street has it that Simon & Schuster is already eyeing this series up and down. There are reports of them sort of running their fingers along their chin, rubbing their hands together, sticking out their tongue, saying, don't mind if I do. And we really got to make sure that this is as good as it can possibly be before they do whatever untoward things it is that they have in mind for this series. Yes, efficiency is the word of the day.
Jay has read book 2, as I mentioned. I've read book 3. We're going to try to put these together in an interesting way. I would say the Powerless episode is required viewing. We will kind of explain things as we go along, but there's a lot to the world building and the prose, and you might as well just watch that one. It's all right. It's not one of my favorite ones because I was annoying about a lot of things, but I think it holds up as far as like literary critique. So highly recommend you check that one out first, but we don't need to be bandying around with a bit this time.
No, we got to get right into it.
So like I mentioned, this episode is actually the fault of our supporters rather than thanks to our supporters, particularly the Order of the Orb Fox. I want to say it was FJ and Kat who came up with this idea on Discord, but I want to blame all of you because you could have voted against it, but you chose not to. Our supporters in the Order of the Orb Fox are Pink Catsy, Simply FJ, Dreekalith, Aiden Feltkamp, Ren, Arthur Clybourne Wrights, Spooks, John Pick, Window, Catherine, Zubin, Courtney, and Hallucigeno. You guys have subjected us both to immense psychological pain, and it will probably increase over the course of this episode. We are also supported by Natalia, Navari, Mallard Griff, Ace, Evil Red Flame, Milo is Tired, A Marvelous Geek, Will, Peach, Merke, Renee, Blade, Kira, and Astro. You guys are the defensive elites that guard our pure blood from having to sell out or worry about SEO. We are also supported by anyone watching this on YouTube. If you feel like joining up, there will be links in the description below. All supporters get early access to our content, as well as exclusive content such as Not an Audiobook, Kate Corain's Crown of Starlight companion podcast.
All right. right, Andrew. Let's get right into the summary. I'm going to be kicking things off with book 2 naturally, but before I start my little yap sesh, is there anything that you want to work in here at the top?
Well, I just kind of want to give a preamble to how this worked. Again, this is a very unorthodox arrangement. It was just kind of a joke on Discord that we thought would be funny to do, and Oof voted for. So, in normal SBU fashion, I do no research on the book or the series other than, the reading of the first book that I have done. And I just buy what I think is book 3. I think it's fearless. I just check it off, and it comes in, and I'm having a good time. But I start to realize that, like, I don't know if this is book 3 or not, because at the end of Powerless, the Prince boys are like, we're going to get Peyton Gray, and Peyton is really sad that Adina died, and the boys are really sad that King Daddy died, or not sad, but like conflicted about it. And then I open up this book, and it's conceivable to me that off screen, Kai just went and got Peyton and brought her back to the throne room, because that's where it opens up in book 3. And like, maybe it was like you're probably wondering how I got into this situation, kind of like flash forward. All of it kind of made me wonder, and eventually I did realize it was book 3, but all of it made me wonder, what the hell even happened in book 2?
So your question in brief was, if the status quo is exactly the same at the end of book 1 as it appears to be at the beginning of book 3,
right,
what could book 2 possibly contain? Surely it must be some kind of vessel for mysteries untold.
Surely.
And that
right?
When I summarize it for you, it'll recontextualize everything that happens in book 3. That's what you're expecting to hear right now, yes?
I'm fully expecting a great book 2 that just blows my gourd at every turn.
Okay. So, I don't know how to break this to you, but it would be a lie to say that nothing happens in book 2, because about 400 pages of events do occur. But it is the definition, like the platonic ideal of a filler episode. So here we are. We are in Reckless, technically a book, written by a literal child, I can only assume. I am going to be really, really mean to this book throughout this entire episode. I think it is 100% deserved that I treat the book in this way, but if that surprises you how frank I'm going to be, I guess I just thought I would get it out of the way now. However, I do want to say, Reckless starts off quite strong. Nothing of note is much happening, really, but Peyton is on the run. She's been on the run in Ilia for several days.
Right.
I don't know what she's been doing, because as the book opens, she's already been on the run for several days.
She's been surviving.
Yeah, I guess she's been surviving, but like, she just then, as the book is starting, goes to her childhood house, recovers a cache of weapons that she left, and then while she's rummaging around, she finds a unrelated cache immediately afterwards containing her dad's diary.
Oh!
And this sets up an interesting pattern where this book will repeat itself a lot. Like, if I was feeling charitable, I could say, like, oh, it's attempting to, like, echo itself, or, like, characters are attempting to echo other characters, or, like, passages are trying to recall each other. But no, it's literally just repeating itself. So she finds a cache, and then immediately finds another cache. And then Kai and his Imperials storm the place. They can't find her. She's hiding in a chimney. And so Kai, who is in his Shadow the Hedgehog arc, decides to set it on fire. And Peyton is almost killed in this because, she's hiding in a chimney when her house is set on fire, but she does manage to escape.
That's really funny that, of course, she's hiding in a chimney.
Yeah. When
she has a fear of claustrophobia.
Yes, she has the fear of claustrophobia. That is correct. And like in the first book, there will be a moment later that is not going to be in my summary because it doesn't matter, where she almost has a panic attack in a tight space, and we're supposed to take it very seriously and care a lot. But in this part, in the beginning, like, she is not nearly as bothered.
Are you sure you didn't read book 1?
Yes, I'm very sure. I'm so extremely sure. Again, not going to sound like it based on how I am talking about this book right now, but I was actually pretty on board for the book at this point. It's maintaining a good clip. The thing about 2 caches back to back was kind of weird, but the energy is there. It's maintaining the momentum from the end of book 1, right? Like, there's a sense of urgency. Peyton wants to get away.
Meanwhile, Kai, our other point of view character, wants to catch her. So both characters have goals. They are in opposition to each other. Stuff is happening. And then Peyton decides, for some reason, to just book it into the desert. I don't know why, after 5 days on the run, she decides to do this now. She doesn't have a map, and she doesn't even think about a map until she's already too far in the desert to turn back. And that's not even a joke. That's literally what happens. She already is out in the desert when she's like, oh, I didn't even think to bring a map. And it's like, why didn't you? Okay, whatever. She's out in the desert. She's hallucinating. She's dying. In her perspective, she is seeing flashes of Kai, who is like taunting her and stuff. And she's like, oh my God, I'm going so insane. I'm so crazy.
Is he sending them magically?
Nope. She
has sand madness.
She's just hallucinating. She has sand madness. That is correct.
Got it.
So she stumbles around in the desert for a while.
That's stupid.
Then Kai realizes that she's out in the desert. So then he follows her out there with a little troop of Imperials, and he has hallucinations about her.
Oh
and
my
so
God.
it's the same situation, but just in reverse. And then they make it to Dor, which is this city in the desert where the people are simultaneously kind of like ethereally beautiful, a bit mysterious and distant, but also very earthy and rugged, and just sort of like more textured than the people back in Ilia, you know? Like, it's not really a big deal. That's just kind of how it is there. I think we do things a little different down here in Dor. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really worry about it. That's just the vibe.
That's great.
We make it to Dor, this city in the desert, where all of the people wear, loose veils and things, and talk about the sand all the time, and you get the idea.
Yeah, I've read Dune.
They eventually cross paths because Peyton joins an underground fighting ring. Kai, who is investigating her, catches wind of this and decides to join the ring as well, and they fight each other for Peyton's fate. There's a good amount of back and forth, but eventually Kai does win, and so he's like, I am going to capture you now.
Like Raimi's Spider-Man?
Yes.
Like, why is Peyton in a cage match? I thought her whole deal was she escaping.
Well, she doesn't have money, and she's just kind of
okay.
bumming around in Dor, and so she's like, I'll join this underground fighting ring.
Got it, okay.
And then Kai finds out and is like, I will also join it.
Stupid. Okay, continue.
Oh, I should mention, though, the way that Kai finds it is he hears from the girl that he let go at the beginning of the first book, who he happens to run into on the streets of Dor. She tells him that there is a new contestant at the underground fighting ring, and he's like, that sounds like Peyton.
How does this exchange happen? How does this you just like, hey, thanks for not killing me anyways.
She tries to pickpocket him, and he catches her. And he's like, I've been pickpocketed by better pickpockets than you. And then he's like, wait, I know you. And she's like, golly gee, it's you.
That's the weird. I thought she was dead. I thought she just like died off screen in the desert. That's really funny that she shows up just to be like, hey, I'm really into WWE now. Like, I would have if I knew you were going to get into wrestling, I would have killed you way back in Ilia.
Good lord. Yeah, so they fight for Peyton's fate, and she, of course, when she loses, doesn't capitulate to that, because, like, why would she, right? Like, that wouldn't make any sense. And even Peyton makes more sense than that as a character. Peyton manages to escape, and then Kai catches her, and then she escapes, and then Kai catches her. And for this time, he actually catches her for good. So then he and her are chained together, and he starts dragging her, along with his Imperials, out into the desert, basically. They just are going to trek right back across the desert, the way they came, back to Ilia, and bring her before Kitt, is the plan, basically.
Like, they're chained together like Death Note. Okay.
Yes, they are chained together like Death Note. I don't think that there's actual handcuffs specifically at this point in the story. I think she's just tied up. But later in the book, they will be chained together for a very, very long time with actual handcuffs.
I see.
They are dragging her back across the desert. But then she manages to escape.
Of course.
Because what did they call themselves? Did they call themselves Rebellion or Revolution?
The Resistance.
I forget which generic...
Resistance.
Yeah, okay, I forget which generic RE noun indicating political unrest that they were. So the Resistance happens upon them and helps her get free. So they kill all of the Imperials. They capture Kai, and they take everybody back to Dor, where there is a Resistance hideout. This is where we learn what became of many of the refugees that like fled Ilia when the previous king was like genociding all of the ordinaries. Apparently, some of them, and also some mundanes and like less powered people, all went to Dor, and of course, you know, they moved on with their lives, they had families, and this resulted in something called mixes. So this is like a new category of magical person.
Mixes?
They're called mixes, and they are like half powered. Yeah. So, for example, one person can create fire, but I think it's only like a very small amount in her hand, and one person can turn invisible, but like only certain appendages, and that kind of thing. So like their powers are sporadic and maybe not even useful.
I don't know if definitionally mixes make sense there, because wouldn't it just be diluteds, diminished, less thans? Because you don't have mixed powers if you can only kind of light a fire and only kind of turn invisible. You're just a lamer version of an existing power. Like, you know what I mean?
I think it's meant to indicate that their blood is mixed. I think we're talking about blood purity here.
And isn't that great that we're doing that in this stupid book series, talking about the purity of blood?
I love that we can't get away from it. I love that everywhere we turn, it's like, hey, have you ever thought about how some people are genetically superior to others? And that's just sort of like an intractable fact of life. I love that all these books continue to argue for that implicitly. That's a really great worldview that we should be spreading.
So give me some named characters of the Resistance. Like, who are we talking about?
Lenny.
Lenny? Yeah,
the sex
okay.
pest.
I was wondering where Lenny went.
Yeah, he's there. He is the one. There are two other ones that are named that are there, but they don't come back. They're about to leave the plot right now, actually. It won't be seen again for the rest of the book. Do they come back in book 3?
Lenny does. I don't know any other Resistance members other than Callum, but I think Callum's in prison at the time of your book.
No.
No? Okay.
No, he's not.
All right. Weird. Okay, continue.
They concoct a little plan. Basically, what they're going to do is take Kai back to Ilia, along with Payton, and they are going to parlay with Kitt, I guess at the gates of Ilia, and be like, we'll give you Kai back if you basically stop pursuing us and just let us go forever. They decide that this is a good plan. Kai overhears it because he's borrowing Lenny's hyper power without anybody noticing, and they trek back out into the desert. So at this point, the group is Kai, Payton, Lenny, and I think 2 other Resistance members. They make it a little ways out into the desert when they are suddenly ambushed by a bunch of thugs from Dor, led by the guy who ran the underground fighting ring, who was named earlier, but like once. And they are like, Payton, there's like a huge price on your head, and also if we capture Kai, then we can sell you and him to Kitt for even more money. So like, of course, we're not just going to let you 2 valuable people leave the city. They are both captured and trapped in a sewer. And at this point, they are tied up together, like down a little sewer drain. They manage to escape. The sewer floods. There's like an action scene where for a minute we think Kai is drowned, but then Payton saves him. And then this is the moment where from here on, for the rest of the book, they will actually be chained together. And my summary is almost over. So when I say for the rest of the book, it feels like a lot longer reading it than what it takes for me to describe it. Because once they escape from the sewer, we enter what I like to think of as the reckless event horizon, where for the rest of the book, which is like a good 150, 200 pages, we are just caught in this cycle where Payton will try to escape from being chained up with Kai. While she's trying to escape, she will flirt with him. And then she either gets away, about which they will flirt, and then she'll be recaptured, in which they will flirt. And then Kai will be angsty for have to catch her, which will cause them to flirt, and then we'll go back to the top of the chart where she'll try to escape again. Now, let's say this time she actually does escape. So she's trying to get away. They're flirting about it. She doesn't manage to escape. And then they'll flirt about, the fact that she's chained up or whatever, and that's really sexy.
Right.
And then Kai will be angsty about the fact that he is keeping the love of his life chained up, at which point something will happen, like a random event. It feels like somebody rolled a die on like a random event table in D&D. And then they will flirt about that, which will then lead into her trying to escape. That is this book.
How many times, roughly, do you think the loop happened?
I'm going to say a solid 4.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
During all of this, we are having these little Kitt updates, as somebody in the Discord called them, which I think is a cute little name for what's going on. We will keep cutting back to Kitt, who is just in his tower, in the castle, moping. He's so sad that Payton is gone. He's so sad that his dad is dead, but also that he didn't really like his dad,
right.
And so he doesn't know how to feel about that, which genuinely is kind of interesting. I wish more time had been spent on it. And he's really worried that like Kai is going to run away with Payton, and then not only will he have lost his brother, but he'll have been betrayed by his brother for a girl that didn't love him back, and he's just so angsty. And every single one of these updates is the same. He will sit there being angsty. A character from the previous book will show up and try to talk to him, and he'll be like, no, I'm self-isolating right now because I'm sad.
Right.
And that will be the end of it. During one of these scenes, Callum brings him this little velvet box, which we totally don't know what's inside it, guys. We have no idea what's in this, like, conspicuous velvet box that seems to contain some piece of perhaps precious jewelry. But we'll get back to that. And during another one of these scenes, we have Kitt going and talking to the queen, who is currently dying of grief because of her husband being dead, and she wants Kitt to come talk to her more because he reminds her of her sexy dead husband. Keep that in mind. That is a pattern that we will get back to later in the critiques. One particular little loop on the Payton and Kai flowchart that is worth highlighting because it actually ties into the end of the novel is when they finally make it to the Sanctuary of Souls. Like, after a whole bunch of bullshit, they make it out of door, they go through the Sanctuary of Souls. There are some bandits, which have been teased for the entire book. They fight them off in like a couple of pages. It is the easiest fight in the world. They make it to a field outside of Ilia that is called The Field. And Kai is like, Payton, have you ever been to The Field before? It's not even capitalized. But she's like, no, I've never been to The Field, but I've heard of The Field. And it's just a big field full of flowers.
Are they poppies?
Yes, some are poppies.
Poppy field.
A poppy field, let's go. It's like a little Wizard of Oz, like, I guess. But they just have like a boilerplate romantic interaction on the field. Then they are caught by soldiers, dragged to the castle, and we arrive blessedly at the end of the novel where Payton is dragged before Kitt, and he opens the box and says, Payton, you're gonna marry me. And that is where we end Reckless.
Whoa, really?
No character growth, no expansion of the world, except we now know that there is another city with people in it.
Yeah.
No iteration on the magic system, no new characters, nothing. That is it.
So I have some follow-up questions, because I honestly was not expecting it to be that quick. I knew it didn't have a lot going on in it. So first one, this is just a trivia question. How long chronologically do you think your book took place?
It couldn't have been more than like 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah. So that's right on the money. Kai says he spent a fortnight looking for Payton, or like doing his thing with Payton, which I thought was an interesting. I guess that's okay for like a novel length, but I don't know how long I don't know how long Powerless was supposed to have been, but I pictured it being longer than a fortnight, and I wonder if that contributes to the lack of content there, that chronologically not a lot developed. My other question, there was something that I was really hung up on, which was Kai being really good at braiding hair. And I know why, like ex post facto from what book 3 said, but I'm wondering what about Kai's backstory gets revealed in book 2.
I am going to save that for later, because it also ties into the dying queen moment. I have something more substantial to say about that.
Okay.
So put a pin in that.
More to come.
I would give it to you now, genuinely, but there would be no way to give it to you without getting it fully into critiques.
Okay.
And I don't want to break the formula that much,
Okay.
so we gotta hold off.
All right, that's fine. Because I have a long summary. Because a lot happens.
Yes, let's go.
A lot happens in my book. Like, there are no B stories. There's just a lot of A that happens over and over and over again in different ways. Jesus. The poppy field was, I'll go ahead and say, the only detail that I did not fully understand from book 1 that was referenced in book 3.
The fact that they go to a poppy field was treated
one...
as a meaningful plot point in book 3.
Not a meaningful plot point, but like of the things, like I either knew it from book 1 or they explained it. So like that was the only thing. Okay. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? His arms tug me close. I rest my head on his shoulder. We watch our redacted skip in the pooling sunlight until a flash of lilac has my gaze flickering to a shadowed corner of the street. I stare into the face of a ghost. She stares back. Scarred flesh climbs up the side of her neck. Mutilated skin stretches across her features before disappearing into that lilac hair. Only one half of her sharp face bears the remnants of my hatred. I can still feel her soft skin beneath my palm, feel the heat of the raging fire that I forced her into.
Does Peyton push Blair into a fire and horrifically scar her?
I don't know, Jay.
Oh my god, dude.
We open on two shady characters in the prologue. They're meeting in an alley with this weird exchange of silver coins, like it's Judas or something. Jay, I don't think it's going to mean anything to you, but like, I have no idea who this is. I think one of the characters is Kitt, and the other one might be the captain or something. Like, I don't know. Commenters, if you have a guess or let me know, because this went completely over my head. Anyways, so we actually start right at the end of book 2. There's some big awesome conflict that I thought had happened, but apparently not. Apparently they just dragged her through the desert.
They literally basically had to play It Takes Two for the length of a book. Oh, wait. A more topical reference. They basically played split fiction for the duration of a book.
You're right.
And
that
like
was
in
so much
split
better.
fiction, the stories that they write are painfully generic, and the dialogue is painfully generic, and nothing really happens. Like, it's mostly just like the Freitag Pyramid is just basically a flat line with a little bump right at the end. And this Reckless really did feel like one of the books that one of the girls in split fiction would have written, where it's just like, what if it was a fantasy story? Did you ever think of that? That would be crazy, right?
And they drag her bruised, bloody, and beaten, and her beauty has been diminished. But out of nowhere, Kitt's just like, ordinaries are cool now. I'm friends with Callum, the resistance leader, for some reason, and I'm marrying Peyton. It's time to open our borders to free trade and immigration. And I'm just like, great, but what happened?
Cool.
which to be fair, Peyton and Kai have the same reaction that I do, so I wasn't like ejected from the novel. I was just like very confused, but it made me feel good that I didn't like miss anything from book 2 that everyone else is thinking what I'm thinking. Anyways, in classic pattern, I think, of the entire series, if not just this book, of kicking the can down the road, he says this and he's like, I'm gonna talk about it more in a formal meeting, but not right now. So just like,
oh my god.
Why? I don't know. Maybe just for dramatic effect. There's just going to be a court meeting later. I may or may not even touch on it. Here's where I got nervous about reading the wrong book. So like I mentioned, it's not inconceivable that book 2 would open with Kai just having grabbed Peyton. But what really got me is that every like mopey reference to the past came from book 1. So there's a couple things that we're going to hear ad nauseum in this book. And I want you, Jay, to tell me if this is the case in book 2. So point 1,
Mm-hmm.
Adina's dead. Peyton is sad about it. Adina is so great and awesome, or at least she was until she fucking died. And Peyton hates Blair because Adina is not alive anymore.
Blair I can't page search because I don't have a digital copy of the book, but I don't think Blair is mentioned even once.
That's crazy.
To my recollection, Blair doesn't come up even once. Towards the end, I bet if you tracked the mentions of Adina, there starts to be like a little increase in the amount that Peyton thinks about her being dead and how much she misses her. But previous to that, it's all her dad. She's like, I miss my dead dad, I miss my dead dad, I miss my dead dad. And I love Kai, but I can't be with him, but I don't like him. But my dad is dead, but I love Kai, but I can't be with him, but my dad is dead. On a loop.
Wow. Yep. That's definitely a part of what they say here. So Peyton killed King Daddy, and she doesn't feel bad about it, but she does love the boyfriend brothers, so she feels a little bit bad about that, but not really, which we've established is the case in book 2. Peyton and Kai have a crush on each other, but they don't know what to do about it, and they trade poetic declarations of love. It's all terrible, terrible. They always sort of kind of get caught flirting by other characters, but no one ever narcs on them, and it never becomes anything other than this interpersonal drama. It's never like an issue. Which I guess
it's such a missed opportunity too, because like their attraction to each other was like borderline public, I feel like, in the first book. So anybody that's looking to destabilize the kingdom could easily capitalize on that.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of people who are very mad at King Kai now who would want to say something, maybe even some bitchy bitches. I don't boisterous Blairs out there. I don't know, you know, there's a lot of people who may not be happy with the way things are going. So yeah, that's a good point. Several characters will come up to Kai and say, you have a crush on Peyton, and then walk off and nothing will happen, which is cool. And then the purging trials are really bad and they're not good, which of course, there's 2 details that made me realize that this was not in fact book 2. Detail 1 was the poppy field, like I was talking about. My prediction was that was where Kai would have caught Peyton, and then they had some like Raylo ass twist where they ended up just making out rather than capturing each other. But no, Jay's shaking their head, so I guess not.
No, they do make out there, but like they make out everywhere, and then they hate each other for it, and then blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that sounds right. The second detail is the fact that Adam Gray is not actually Peyton's father. A fact which I will reserve judgment for until the time that it proves appropriate, basically.
Okay.
What I will say is that every time Peyton is not thinking about Adina being dead and not alive, and being sad about the fact that Adina is not alive anymore, or being sad about like a cute boy, my father, M dash, but not really my father, I feel sad about the fact that that's not actually my father. Like several times, every time a father is mentioned, we think about Adam Gray, and we think about the fact that he's not actually her father, which I hated so much.
It's like a chemistry or physics problem almost. It's like anytime X happens, Y must therefore follow.
No,
that's how the characters think in these books. Like, yeah, there's like certain things that they will always respond to predictably.
I want to use the word like procedural generation, if that makes sense. You know, like how, you know, if you have this one chunk loaded in Minecraft, the chunk next to it has to abide by certain patterns. And eventually things start to move, but it takes forever to actually see a change in the landscape. It's terrible.
I think that's a good metaphor.
Anyways, so Kai is just brooding about this because, again, Kai didn't know about the marriage plan because he's been stuck in the desert, and then Kitt just dropped this on us and them. While this is happening, he just goes on forever about being sad. It's not worth talking about. Peyton and Ellie, the maid from book 1, they play Barbie dress up because she's she's back from the desert.
I'm glad that Ellie is back.
Yeah, great. Everyone's favorite character. Peyton gets a bath, and there's a big deal made about cutting her hair and like washing the blood out of it, which I thought may have had thematic weight from book 2. Looks like it probably
does happen in book 2 as well.
Okay.
Yeah. It's after the bandit fight. She gets blood in her hair during the bandit fight, and then she starts freaking out about having had to kill more people, and she's like, ever since I held Adina in my arms and felt her blood leaking out onto me. I've been so disgusted by death. I used to be able to take it, but now I can't do it anymore because every body reminds me of Adina's body.
Yep.
And then Kai is like, well, we can't wash your hair out here because we're in like a city-sized cemetery, like literal Elden Ring. And she's like, cut it off, and then he does.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So that also happens here. I guess her hair grew back really fast. I don't know. I don't know. So, Jay, is the queen literally dying of grief? Like, does she have a named disease?
No, she is dying of grief. She is
of grief.
sick in bed. She has Victorian woman syndrome.
Okay.
She's just like, oh, I simply can't take it anymore. This life, my bones.
I guess it's just like where the red fern grows or something, and she's the other dog.
Yes, exactly that. Crazy that you referenced that, but yes.
So Blair did not come up in book 2, but do you remember like what happened to her at the end of book 1?
She killed Adina.
Well, like
and then
to
she
her.
got slapped.
She got slapped?
Did she get slapped?
She probably got
during
slapped.
One of the fights,
I don't know.
Or was that at the end?
I'm sure she
remember
got slapped
Peyton
at some
slapping
point.
her.
So anyways, I don't know if Blair's also infirm or under house arrest or what, but like she will be locked up for a majority of the novel, like physically barred from seeing Peyton. And I just kind of pictured Queen Mommy II and Blair just lying on operating tables for most of the book. I don't know. But I don't think that's what actually happened.
It just cuts away to the sound of a heart monitor.
So Adina is dead. She used to be alive, but now she's dead, and her dad is not really her father. Did I mention that? Because the book thinks that you forget.
You did mention that, but what you forgot to mention was the way Blair's brutal branch breached Adina's breast or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I'll make a note about that. Like, I guess I'm getting used to it, but I think the alliterations were a little bit better in book 3. I wasn't as bothered by them when they did appear, and they seem to be fewer and further between. I could be wrong, or like I said, I could have just gaslit myself through exposure. But anyways,
they really came and went in book 2. Like they seemed to, they were like a rash or something. Like they would come on like in spurts and then they would go away for chapters, but then when they would come back they'd be really severe. So maybe we're witnessing Lauren Roberts' writing style evolve in real time. Like it was really bad in book 1, and then by book 3 it's kind of started to become under control.
Right. We learned through literal maid and butler exposition that Kitt's been really affected by grief. Jay alluded to it in their summary, and now him and Callum are best friends because Callum was in the dungeon because he was the leader of the resistance, if you don't recall from the Powerless episode, and Kitt must have just found him, run into him on the stretcher or whatever, which kind of explains the sudden bleeding heart, ordinaries are cool now thing. More on that later. Like I was mentioning, for some ass reason, Lenny has to guard Blair. Like, again, I may have missed it. She might have been injured from something in book 1, or like maybe this is more for like Peyton's protection or whatever. But I'm reiterating this so much because I want you to remember that every main character wants to stop Peyton from having physical contact with Blair and vice versa. Every single character is like, don't hurt Blair, don't talk to Blair, it's not worth it, there's going to be political fallout because she's the daughter of a general. I cannot overstate how much I need you to have that in your head. More on that later.
Okay.
Yeah, it's waved off as like a political fallout thing, but again, with the kicking down the road thing, I think it's just because Lauren doesn't want to deal with this at this point in the narrative. I don't know. Kai confronts Kitt about him not knowing about the whole marriage plan, but it turns out that Kitt didn't really know what he was doing either. That idea about the marriage came from Callum, which was talked about in book 2, right?
Yes, Callum enters Kitt's room and gives him the box at some point. So they're already friends by that point. I don't know how they became friends. I don't believe it's explained.
It's not explained? It's not explained in book 2?
Okay. I don't think so.
Cool. So this could be interesting because, it obviously sets up Callum as like this Darai figure, but the argument devolves into Kai being like, what the hell, bro? I had dibs. Like, it's very juvenile. It's not interesting. So Peyton jumps in. She's like, why can't I kill Blair? I want to kill Blair so bad. And Kitt gives her some non-answer about political fallout. They talk a little bit about the journal, like Adam Gray's journal, and the whole thing about the ordinary disease not being real. And there's this really interesting hatred for doctors exhibited that I've really only ever seen in Blood of Heracles, where like all of the healers were paid off to perpetuate the myth that ordinaries have like this horrible blood-borne disease, and like Adam Gray was the only one who never took the bribe.
He was a bold truth teller,
right?
blowing the sounding the alarm on this government conspiracy about a fake disease.
Right. So
he should start a podcast.
I know I mentioned it in the first one, but I still firmly believe that the plague is just COVID. And I'll reserve drawing specific references to it for lack of desire to discuss what might be a incendiary political discussion. So I'm not saying anything about my beliefs about COVID, but like I want you to hear the word COVID when you hear the word plague, because I think it's more interesting that way. I do kind of want to unpack like the hatred of doctors thing. Like I'm all for it. I don't like doctors. Hospitals scare me, but like I didn't realize like it was like this much of a deep fear and mistrust for like an entire group of people. Anyways, I just think it's interesting. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that, but Blood of Hercules and Fearless have the same bent in that regard.
Doctors, journalists, all of the politically fraught jobs of our age.
Right.
I think it's just evidence of what happens when you're writing a novel and you're like the type of person who is writing a novel because you like the idea of writing a novel and not because you have anything to say. Like you just incidentally express shit that's like festering in the collective unconscious.
Right.
I honestly don't think it's any deeper than that. I don't know that Lauren Roberts has particular beliefs about COVID, or that, well, Norman Boutin definitely has particular beliefs about journalists, but he's a discussion unto himself.
Right. No, but this might just not be a discussion for you and me, because from my limited understanding, women have a lot of reasons to not like or trust doctors, you know?
For sure. I think that came up in our Blood of Heracles episode too, right?
Yeah. Famously in the States, like doctors are terrible at dealing with women's issues. So I do think it's that festering unconscious thing, but I think it's worth, I don't know, bringing to the fore at least. I don't know what to do about it, but it's just interesting to me. Anyways.
It is interesting.
Kitt's goal is less ordinaries are good now and more he wants free trade, because the rest of the world doesn't like Ilya because of the whole plagues and then the ordinaries thing and then the elites thing, which is a double-sided problem because Ilya's like running out of resources in some nebulous way, or hitting hard economic times that could only be remedied by a cash infusion. And it sounds like that didn't really come up much in book 2.
They definitely talk about how Ilya has been isolationist, to its detriment for a long time, even before the plagues, but they don't mention any resource shortages, but it sounds like a logical extrapolation of what happens in book 2. Like, I would buy it.
This dichotomy between Peyton's desires for ordinaries to be free and equal and Kitt's desires for economic gain is really cool to me, because it sets us up for the situation where they're not both necessarily protagonists, but they have the same goal, but they want that goal for different reasons, which will contribute itself very well to a situation where we have the characters sit down and talk about their opinions and feelings and learn about the world and themselves and others. And maybe
have a conversation that isn't just flirting.
Right. And maybe deepen our understanding of our world, which is what all literature should do.
I'm on board. You can laugh, but I'm on board.
This isn't important, but you mentioned France might be real earlier in the series.
They reference Beauty and the Beast in the text, which means France is real.
I can confirm that France is real, Jay. I have one single word to confirm that France is a real. So it's Tondo, Ilya, and France. Braille is a thing in this world by the name Braille.
I
So
see.
there was a man named Louis Braille who was hanging out in the world of Powerless. And when he wasn't suffering from the plague, he came up with a way for blind people to read. Maybe he was from Tondo.
I guarantee that after a long, hard day of chiseling by hand lots of bumps onto things so that disabled people can read them, that Louis Braille went down to the same pub as John Lute and that the two of them shared a drink together. I would bet you anything that that's canon.
John Lute. I love him. Let's get down to brass tacks. Adina is dead. She is dead and she's not alive. Peyton is sad because Adina is not alive.
And Blair killed
Blair killed
Adina.
her
Blair?
with a branch. Her father is not her dad, in case you forgot any of that.
Okay.
So Peyton goes to the promised court meeting and Kitt says what we all know. Like, literally take my summary and put it in Kitt's voice, because that is exactly what happens. We've spent several chapters establishing that this is what happens. I guess it's kind of cool that he blends the truth to save face. He's like, Peyton did technically kill my father, but my father was delirious and he wasn't in his right mind. Us oppressing ordinaries was necessary temporarily, but now it's time to reopen borders. Like, he does this cool little diplomatic thing with it. It's not exactly what we know, but it's interesting. So cool.
It feels shady in a way that like a real politician might be.
Right. Yeah, very, God, what's the guy from True Allegiance's name? Prescott, very President Prescott. But anyways, the pattern of them telling us things that we've already seen is going to continue for a while. Peyton has nightmares about Adina that night because Adina is dead. She is not alive anymore. Blair killed her. She is dead. Kai and Peyton then go sneak off to flirt. I don't think I'm going to summarize a lot of these scenes because they're all the same, but just know that like every couple of beats, there's going to be a situation where Peyton and Kai are alone together and Peyton will like neg Kai and Kai will recite Hosier lyrics at her about how when he dies, he wants to crawl to her in the afterlife, which I think is like literally a Hosier song now that I think about it. But he literally said something like that. It's fine. Like, I love Hosier, but like it's way too much and it's way too annoying.
Yeah. This is exactly the same thing that happens in Reckless too. It's
Really?
like literally stuff like there's like a loop. And at the end of that loop of events is roll random event on event table.
Right.
And maybe it's they get together and sing Hosier lyrics. In Reckless, one of them is they're being pursued, and so they have to sneak into a building, but then they get in there and they realize it's a brothel / casino.
Right.
And so they sit at a table, and Peyton has to like sit on Kai's lap while he gambles and pretend that she's a prostitute. And another one is like they break into an inn because they need somewhere to spend the night. And those kinds of things.
Stupid.
Yeah.
The only thing interesting about this scene in particular is Kai had a little sister named Ava who died. How old was Ava when she died? Did they ever give you any indication?
I think she was like 8.
Okay.
She was sentient. Like
Okay.
Kai has recollections of conversations with her.
Okay. But she's buried under the willow tree. And the willow tree just happens to be the place that Kai and Peyton made out and heavily petted in book 1, which I don't like, which I have a little bit of a moral issue with. Call me a little bit of a prude, but
So you have like an issue with like the coupling of Kai's feelings towards his sister and Kai's feelings towards Peyton.
yes, you could say that.
Okay.
You could say that.
Hold on to that. Hold that discomfort. Hold space for the lyrics of that Hosier song. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
So Kai, Kitt, and Peyton go on a parade to celebrate the engagement or whatever. And I do like the tension here because like the three of them all have different histories with each other. Each one has a relationship to the other in a different way from the other two. So, and all
like
of it,
some kind of love triangle.
okay,
It's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, it is a love triangle, but it works in a micro sense for this scene to be interesting.
Sure.
Then they take the procession to Loot Alley because, again, this is supposed to be like a ordinaries are cool now montage. And Adina's dead. I don't think I mentioned that, but we can't think about that for too long.
Like 3 minutes, yeah, since you did.
That's longer than the book takes to remind you. But then there's an explosion. Oh my god, it's a human, non-powered bombing. Oh, and Adina's dead, which Peyton thinks about because now there are more dead people in Loot Alley because of the bombs. And I don't know, like a kid dies dramatically, and she's like, "Go into the light, young boy." It's just so stupid. We are then ripped from the current diegesis to have flashbacks from King Daddy's perspective. Years before.
No way.
Yes, we get King Daddy before chapters. Years and years before book 1 even begins.
Oh my god, that's crazy. That's crazy that they're doing the weird perspective time flippy floppy things, because that also happens in Reckless. What happens in Reckless is the same as what happened in Powerless, where like you'll have a scene from Peyton's perspective and then you'll have the scene again from Kai's perspective, but starting earlier, and then you catch up. But I didn't mention it because we already talked about it in Powerless, but this is like a whole other thing. This is crazy.
This is separate. I think there could have been a version of the book without them, but I gotta say, take notes, Alex Astor. They are never more than a couple chapters. It's pretty fun to see his perspective because this is an opaque character versus, brooding boy. Like if this were Kai or Kitt. I'm going to lay off the Lightlark references because that was one of the things I thought was annoying about the Powerless episode. So I'll just say, I wouldn't want to know what Kai and Kitt were doing in their childhood or whatever, but it's very interesting to see King Daddy walk around and brood about his personal history and his relationship to the castle. And he just kind of, in this one, talks about how much he loves his wife, Queen Mommy the First. So that would be Kitt's mom. That's really all we get from that scene. So that's going to happen a couple more times. I'll let you know, and it's important, but he's always brooding.
Is she a
about
badass?
Something. No, she's very sweet and gentle.
That's better than dead.
Right. He does display like a little bit of softness, and apparently that's like unique to this era of him because there was something about Queen Mommy the First that like tempered him and made him a more gentle man. So everyone's fine after the bombing. Callum comes to visit them, and
how's Adina? Is Adina okay?
Oh no, sorry, Adina's dead.
Oh, from the bombing?
Right. No. This was a while ago. Okay. You had to have been there. Callum comes up and he's very fatherly, and Peyton's dad is dead. But that's not actually her dad, so that's kind of weird. She should be sad about that. They literally just shrug off the bombing as a message from people who don't like Peyton, Mary, and Kai, or like hate ordinaries. Like there's no investigation. There's no like follow up to this. They're just like, oh, that sure did suck, but we need to keep going because this is about things bigger than us now.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Don't want to check and see if that's like a threat to this new regime that's like maybe in a more vulnerable state. No, right. Okay, never mind.
Maybe there's like a second resistance, like an underground elite movement. No, don't worry about it, buddy. Here's an interesting world building detail. As elites become more racist, and this is related to something that I was asking about in the Is Andrew Stupid montage. Not racist, but elitist. The elites become more elitist. Mundanes are becoming the new ordinaries. So the people with boring powers are starting to be oppressed, which I think is from a journal in book 2. You seem familiar with this plot detail. Okay, good. Which I think
they mention it. They mention, or Kai mentions, I believe, that like nameless, faceless advisors had to restrain King Daddy's desire to genocide even mundanes. Like they had to talk him down from that and get him to settle for ordinaries.
Great. There's some more arguing about like what the path forward should be, but the answer becomes clear. You're going to love this, Jay. They need to do a second set of trials just for Peyton. She needs to do like a queen trials where they just...
Huh? So... Wait, it's the purging trials, but like a single player variant?
Yes, like a single player variant of the Pershing trials where she has her trials 3 to prove that she can be queen. How are they going to be measured, you might ask? Well, you see, I don't know whether this came up in book 1, but there's a concept to Ilian royalty called the 3 Bs.
It's in book 2. Yeah.
Bravery, benevolence, and brutality.
And brutality. Yeah.
Which does 2 things. And I'm very weird about this, and I know not everyone is like me, but I just have to point out that this proves that 1, they are using His Majesty Julius Caesar's Latin alphabet, and 2, they are most likely speaking His Majesty King Charles's English. So I don't know what to do with that information, but she's got to exhibit the 3 Bs. And even so, I know Brando Sando has the concept of implied translation. I personally think it's a little bit of a cop-out, but deferring to the argument of implied translation, the 3 Bs is a very stupid name for something like a philosophy of rule. You know, like, I just think that's too much for me.
Yeah, why don't they call it like a motto at least? Or like, what do you call the thing on a family crest? Is that also called a motto?
I don't. In Game of Thrones, they're called house words, so I don't know if that's like
sure.
a term
okay,
or
yeah,
whatever.
that's an acceptable phrase that sounds sort of fantasy adjacent. Like anything other than just calling it the 3 Bs, like they learned at a corporate training seminar.
Right.
Like, good God.
Tabling all of that, these are secret trials. Ilia, as a cohesive whole, will be pretending to have gracefully accepted their queen, as they put it, which is a crazy idea to me. 1, that everyone in Ilia will go along with this, and 2, assuming that's even possible, is there no cultural exchange or espionage or, I don't know, ordinaries who fuck off to the desert and go to Dor and maybe come back every now and then, like even tiny cracks in the isolationist veil? Like, I figured there was a little bit, and we're going to have more or less confirmation that it is possible for you as an outsider to know what's going on in Ilia. So,
Yeah.
This doesn't work.
It's weird. That double standard is in Reckless too, because the people of Dor, I'll talk a little bit about Dor's government later because that actually comes up in my critiques. But like the people of Dor seem like the main political thing they care about is what is happening in Ilia. But
right.
Nobody from Dor ever goes to Ilia. They just hear literally everything that's happening there and care an immense amount about it. And they hate them because they sent a bunch of refugees their way, which, you know, I can understand that might cause some problems for a small city, so fair enough that they have complicated feelings about that. But they also hate that they, you know, are like isolationist and stuff like that. So
sure, very
it's
fair.
Weird.
So Peyton is on board for this. She understands the necessity of legitimizing herself as the queen. So she goes to the training yard late at night, and Peyton overhears Kitt and Kai having the exact same conversation that they were having earlier about how Kai had dibs, and now they both have daddy issues, and they both love the same girl, but in different ways. Not like literally in like a timeline thing. The only thing you need to remember about this is that Kitt asks Kai to start training ordinaries as soldiers for some reason. I don't know. Kai and Peyton have a flirt fight with swords that's supposed to be so sexy, which would be a great time to reference book 2. Like, it seems like the time in the desert they spent together really doesn't matter that much.
No, it's totally stagnant. Like, when they like each other, it seems like they are into each other in a way that is extremely juvenile. Like, it's like first crush kind of into each other. But then when they don't like each other, they seem to be like genuinely, well, Peyton especially seems to be like genuinely upset by the fact that she wants Kai but doesn't want to.
Right.
In a way that, like, after enough iterations of it happening, it starts to actually feel a bit concerning. But
yeah,
other than that, it's nothing special.
Right. You may not have noticed it because it's so subtle, but Kai and Peyton have a crush on each other, and they need to keep it secret because Peyton is now engaged to Kai's brother. You know, you can't have that.
Most unbecoming.
So Peyton has dinner with Kitt, and this is another moment that like almost works for me from an interpersonal standpoint. So she murdered his dad, but his dad kind of sucks, and Kitt knows it, but they still have that weird thing because Kitt kind of loved his dad, and they both want the same thing, but for conflicting reasons, and they both know that their reasons conflict, and it's all kind of tense. So I really liked it.
What do they
It was
eat?
a good...
Do they have a Sky Shade meal of meat cooked all the way through and roasted vegetables?
Mashed potatoes. I remember there was mashed potatoes. I don't remember the entree.
Oh, right, because that's Kit's favorite food, right?
I think so.
According to the wiki or whatever. Shout out to the wiki.
Shout out to the wiki. I formally sanction an SBU raid of the Powerless wiki.
Literally.
Please just fix it. So for the first trial, she has to get the first queen's crown from this series of desert-themed Skyrim dungeons. I think this is the big grave place that I was alluding to in book 2 with all the bandits. The one that they pointedly didn't go to, right, in Reckless?
They go home through it, and they fight off a small band of bandits.
Okay, that's weird.
Like, the least threatening enemies
Right.
ever to grace a fantasy novel. They are literally beneath, like, tutorial dungeon rats,
Right.
these bandits that they fight.
Well, then where the hell was she? Because unless I'm misremembering, which is completely possible because I didn't have the context from Reckless, she doesn't reference having been here before. Or it just, like, she magically teleports there without a lot of exposition getting us to that point. Anyways, there are a million billion bats in this cave who are super big and, like, attack her a bunch, but she fends them off with her dagger. Again, it's very, like, Skyrim or, like, very, like, RPG.
Yeah.
The narrative will withhold this for a while, but they're probably the bat version of elites because animals can get the plague, which I think is really interesting, and I wish it came up more than 2 times in the entirety of my book and 0 times in Jay's.
It's such a shame. It's such a waste.
So I'm sitting here like, okay, you know, I don't want this to turn into Indiana Jones, but it could be fun. You know, I could have a good time. Only for, this is how the scene goes, Jay. Peyton gropes around in the darkness, finds the coffin like a cartoon. She like feels it and she's like, huh, this is coffin shaped. Breaks into it. It finds the pelvis of the skeleton and works her way up to the... Yeah, isn't that gross? Like, she just mentions the pelvis like that. And she's just like...
That's sort of weirdly visceral, like, in a way
Right?
that the rest of the series has not been. I don't know. Maybe it's just a moment where, I mean, you write enough text and eventually you write something that's sort of interesting, even if it's accidentally. And even if the way it's interesting doesn't really gel with the rest of the
Right.
series.
And there's a lot of lip service to, wow, it's really weird that I'm raiding this grave, which, yeah, fair. It is a little weird to me anyways,
It is
but
weird.
Peyton just
Kinda
will
cool.
grab it. Yeah. So meanwhile, the boys are brooding. Kitt knows Kai has a crush on Peyton, but Kai doesn't know whether Kitt knows that he has a crush on Peyton, which I find really weird. I don't know if this was like, he explicitly says, oh, I don't know whether Kitt knows that I have a crush on Peyton or whatever, which I think is like either a plot hole or I'm misunderstanding something about that because these two boys are so intimate. Why doesn't that go both ways, right?
They know in book 2. They definitely know.
Right. So like it might just be like this one line that should have been excised from the book that I'm being hung up on, but like it really like called into question the intimacy between these characters, but it doesn't matter. Kai goes to see Queen Mommy II, so that's his mom, and she's just sitting on the operating table we were talking about. And and all Queen Mommy II says to Kai is, you have a crush on Peyton, but she's engaged to your brother, so get over it, please. And then Kai leaves, and that's the scene. Back at the desert Skyrim dungeon.
Wait,
What?
is that really it? Is that really it?
They trade some kind of thing about, oh, I'm the prince now, I'm the enforcer, things are different.
Okay. Because when Kitt talks to her, she has this kind of heartfelt moment. I mean, it's very boilerplate. It's like literally the platonic ideal of what you would imagine an exchange like this to go. But she's like, I know we've never really had a relationship, and now that I'm dying, I regret it. And like it it edges being tender, like in the way that Kitt is like, yeah, maybe it's not too late to like remedy that, and like I accept your apology. But then he never does go and see her kid, so
Right.
I guess it really was all just performance.
I mean, it's not Skyshade hit A on the NPC and the plot gets vended, but like in terms of like what actually will matter going forward, only the fact that every character who talks to Kai says you have a crush on Peyton matters here.
We did not get badass Queen Mommy from our wish list.
We really didn't. That's crazy. I wanted it so bad. I need mommy. Anyways, back in the desert, sorry, I got Queen Mommy on the brain. Back in the desert, bandits attack Peyton.
Clip it, chat, clip that.
But it doesn't even matter that bandits attack Peyton because she dispatches them so easily. And then she says something absolutely bizarre here, and I'm not doing my bit. She actually mentioned, well, every time I do my bit about Adina being dead is a time in the plot where they talk about Adina being dead. So I'm doing that on purpose, but I do not understand why she does this. She kills all these bandits easily, and then she's like, doing this brought a piece of Adina's light back into my soul. What the hell are you talking about? I don't think Adina was ever like, slaughter bandits for me, Peyton.
Yeah, I don't think Adina was ever like, Peyton, you know how we're homeless? You know what I hate more than anything else is other homeless people. You should kill them in my name. Like, I have a hard time believing that happened.
Yeah, I do too. But anyways, that's that. The elites are waiting for Peyton to come back. I didn't tell you this, but like the trial was like, you need to bring it back before midnight in a day from now, like that kind of thing. So they're waiting around, and it's kind of devolved into this party. Jax shows up ex nihilo, which is crazy to me because he was like kind of an important character in book 1, and then he was absent for several chapters is where we're at right now in book 3. Where was Jackson book 2?
Characters talk about him. Is he ever on screen? Maybe once, but he's mentioned.
Jax is drunk, which is played for laughs. It's kind of a funny little scene, but then Jax kind of looks at Kai and he's like, wow, Kai, you sure look sad right now. It's almost like you have a crush on Peyton or something. That's not good. You shouldn't have that. And then he goes away. That's it. So that's 2 for 2 with named character interactions.
Oh my god.
Peyton comes back at like 11:59 or whatever and gives this whole spiel about respecting the dead, only to wear that crown that she recovered as a trophy. She'll later wear this for her coronation, so nothing that she was saying about like we should respect dead people matters. Great.
Does Andy ever come back, out of curiosity?
You will never guess what I'm about to say.
Andy tries to kill Peyton.
Nope.
And become queen. Okay.
Nope. Andy shows up. Picture Kai's over in the corner at this party while Peyton and Kitt are holding up the crown or whatever. Andy comes up to Kai and she says, hey, Kai, looks like you have a crush on Peyton. I think you shouldn't have that. Don't go for it, dude. And then leaves. That's the scene.
That is so funny because Andy shows up in Reckless to
She
talk
does?
to Kitt. She's one of the characters that pops up for a Kitt update. I think she's the first character that shows up actually, because the first Kitt update he's alone, I believe. But yeah, she shows up and she's like, hey Kitt, I know that you're sad, but you need to stop being sad because you actually have a government and a nation to rule.
Yeah.
Also, I work maintenance in the castle now. Check out my cool utility belt. And then she leaves.
There is no utility in Fearless. I would have loved that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love a handy Andy. Even though that's not alliterative, it's just...
They do call her a handy, even though she has another magical title as well. I believe it's like
Great.
shifter or something.
I forgot to mention this because it doesn't matter, but in one of the flirty fight Hosier quoting scenes, Kai goes up to Peyton and he's like, I hate seeing this ring. It represents everything that I hate about you, but now I put it on your other hand, so now it's just a ring. And like... So like he moves it to her right hand basically, and like it's supposed to be so profound and poetic. Anyways, this is like right before Peyton goes to the little adventure that she goes on for the first trial, so she just never moves it back to her left hand. And this is the first time like deductive reasoning comes into this book as well, because Kitt's like, that's not the right finger to have your ring on. And this is played as like this really serious revelation that like, oh, Kitt's onto us. He's gonna blow the lid on the whole operation. Just makes it this massive deal.
Doesn't Kitt know that she's not really into him? Doesn't he know that
Yes!
their wedding is for show? So why would that surprise him that she might, I don't know, like be a little bit indifferent about where she wears her wedding ring?
To me personally, putting the ring on the wrong hand is just like something that can happen. It's not this huge deal.
I think it's like series of unfortunate events rules, where if you sign the wedding contract with your non-dominant hand, or you put the ring on the wrong hand, then the wedding doesn't count, and Count Olaf doesn't get the fortune.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
Kitt was mad because the entire time that Peyton was wearing the ring on her right finger, they weren't actually engaged.
Right.
He can't abide that.
So, time for another King Daddy flashback. This one is at the eve of Queen Mommy the First's death, where she dies in childbirth, but the daughter is powerless. I thought that this was Ava, but I will be proven wrong, because as we remember, Ava was the daughter of Queen Mommy II, Kai's mother.
Yes, and she also has a power.
She has a power?
Yes.
Okay, for some reason I thought Ava was powerless. Anyways, so I guess I'm
crawl up walls like
she's a crawler.
Tree frog.
Okay.
I believe so, yes.
Got it. So I was wrong about thinking that this was Ava. Or was I? Ooh. So,
was it Peyton?
I don't know. It could be. Or it could be Ava. Or it could be a yet unknown third option.
Okay.
Whatever you think is the stupidest, that's where we're going. There's a ball in honor of Peyton's achievement, and Adina is dead. Peyton feels bad about it, so Peyton wants to have a piece of Adina with her. So she wears this dress that Adina made her, whatever. Blair is at the ball.
I was just about to ask if Blair was there. Yes.
Blair is at the ball. I guess that's allowed to happen, but again, with every named character is like deeply invested in Blair's personal safety vis-a-vis Peyton's anger. But so it basically devolves into a bar fight where like Peyton's like, hold me back, and like they're trying to like stop her from eviscerating.
Let me at him. Fucking Scrappy-Doo moment.
She really does have like a Scrappy-Doo moment. There's some more romantic tension with Kai. Adina is dead. We're sad about it. That's all that really matters. Anyways.
Do they wear green? That's Ilia's kingdom color.
I don't know. I thought it was like gold or yellow or something. That's crazy. Anyways, Peyton gets her not dad's storybooks from Callum on the eve of trial number 2, which we will get into. Apparently, like, she has fond memories of being read to from these storybooks. We don't learn a lot about like what they are, other than that they all have like strong female characters, and that's like what made Peyton the way that she is. So,
okay,
interesting. I question.
It feels like a little bit maybe of Lauren Roberts' real life experience popping in there. That's sort of nice. I can vibe with that.
I'll vibe with that. I don't question her getting them. I question her getting them here and keeping them, because trial number 2 is a little arc I like to call 5 Nights at TFLD Sailors. For some stupid reason, Kai and Peyton need to sail over the shallows, a stormy sea known for being extremely dangerous, to contact the nation of Isram.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a bibliophile, but if I had to choose a place I would not want books that I cared about, it would be a rickety boat subject to leaking and water and storms. But anyways.
Okay.
I think the reason that Kai comes with is just in case, like, the sailors decide that they hate ordinaries. There's some allusion to, like, you know, people still aren't cool with the whole pain thing. Anyways, the objective of this mission is to deliver roses to the Queen of Isram as a diplomatic gift, because apparently roses have healing properties. I don't know if that's true in real world as well, even in like folk medicine, but thought that was fun. I don't know. Does your tarot ability tell you anything about herbology?
It does not. They definitely are cross-contaminated, but I haven't been infected with that particular interest.
Okay, so over 5 nights, they have to sail over the shallows, the name of which I can't parse, and I might have missed this, but, like, why is the shallow so named when it's an ocean? Is it, like, an intentionally ironic misnomer, or is it just shallow for an ocean? Like, you know, it's like Lake Michigan or whatever, where it's still, like, a huge body of water, but...
I have no idea. I remember they mentioned
Okay.
it in the first book and mentioned that it was dangerous, but...
Right. I'm going to assume ironic misnomer. The captain's name is Tori with 2 R's, which I think is funny. And he just, like, gives them a kindly protracted tour of a sailboat that we will not see in any detail. He's like, this is the bathroom and this is where you'll sleep. You just call me if you need any craft services. I'm just like, it's so weird. And there's kind of a purpose for it, but, like, reading it in the moment, you're like, this is a waste of ink, dude. The first night, there's a big storm and Kai and Peyton take shelter in the berth, and there's this cutesy moment where they read storybooks to each other, and then the storybooks get water damaged because water starts to come into the cabin. I'm just like, what's the point of this? Later on, exactly what we were warned would happen happens. Some sailors don't like Peyton. They try to, like, throw her overboard or something crazy. There's a stupid fight scene. Kai, like, dramatically fights them, and then Peyton does end up getting thrown overboard, and he grabs her by Adina's vest and it tears, and this is, like, such a dramatic moment, and it means so much because Adina's dead.
That's not replaceable because Adina's dead, so she can't make another one
Right.
because she's not alive anymore.
Right. I think that's the vest that she sublimated her character into once she died.
I think so, because it also comes up in Reckless a couple times, and Peyton's very protective of it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I would try to kill Peyton too, though, to be honest, because if you kill her, then maybe the story will end and you'll be freed from this horrible cycle of literary samsara that living in this universe
I
would
think
be.
I think it would keep happening. So that friendly captain is just like, whoops, you know, sorry about that. I guess there were some disgruntled sailors. You know how they can
A
get
few bad apples.
Right.
What can you do?
Right.
We don't
No.
need sailor reform.
He literally does that. That's so funny. And they intuit that he's a hyper who let the attack happen and didn't do anything about it. Even if he didn't, like, participate in the attack himself, which will be proven correct later on in the narrative, but they do and will never do anything about this. So cool. They arrive in Isram without any further issue, and some of the locals are afraid of Kai, but he likes it because he's such a badass. And then they just get marched up to the queen. Her name is Queen Zyla. This might be my business major background, and it might be even intentional on Lauren Roberts' part, but it is painful how terribly Peyton negotiates with this woman. She's basically just like, here's some roses, please trade with us. We'll be your best friend ever. And Zyla's just like, nope, I'm good, but we can be friends. You and me personally can be friends with each other because I love badass women. And that goes nowhere. And they go to bed at the palace. It's just like, why?
I don't understand why Lauren Roberts keeps teeing herself up for interesting plot developments and then not
Whiffing it.
not swinging. Like she
Yeah, not
just
swinging,
sets
yeah.
the ball down on the tee, and then she walks up to the tee, and then she drops the bat and walks away.
Right.
Every single time. So many of my critiques are gonna hinge on that, but I can't believe it. Because why would you put in the effort of making this character, making them go to this country, having conflict along the way, if you're not actually interested in it? Why would you do it if you don't care?
Right. You know, the things I'm annoyed about could have been intentional, even like the way it is, let alone played intentionally in a better version of this book. Like, Peyton's bargaining posture is horrible. She goes in and she starts making demands without, like, even implying what Isram would get in, like, return for any trade agreement. And when Zyla does a normal, like, negotiating thing and is like, I don't know, Peyton just throws up her hands and she's like, please. It's just like,
Like,
that could be a chance for her to learn how to be a queen, or like
literally, if she's gonna be the queen of this nation, like,
Right.
oh my god. Of course, she's bad at bargaining. Like, she should be
Right,
bad at bargaining.
right.
She's literally like a slum creature that lived in a pillow fort for 19 years.
Right.
Like, she should be bad at political maneuvering at the highest levels of society. But like, that should be played for interest.
Right.
It
not
should do
for
something.
stupid.
It shouldn't just shut down all further like branching of the narrative. Like, God.
Kai and Peyton end up sleeping in the same chambers, which is super scandalous. Kai wakes up in the middle of the night, or like very early in the morning, to find Queen Zyla standing at the threshold, like that queen from Zenith who, what was her name? Queen Alara from Zenith. She's just the designated nightmare waker-upper. And she just says, "Hey Kai, I hated your dad. He was a dick." She uses the word dick, which... And she also says, "Hey, you have a crush on Peyton, and you shouldn't do that. I think you're pretty hot." That's the scene. That's the entire scene. There's more tea parties and like stuff that maybe could pass for political posturing, but none of it goes anywhere. They just leave. They sail back home, and then Kai and Peyton have this utterly bizarre argument about whether or not they could ever be together, which results in them going non-contact. This is the most contrived the narrative gets, because I still do not understand why they got mad at each other. Like, it's just so weird. It's very sitcom.
Do you think that she just signed a contract for a trilogy because it was profitable, and she was like, "This is an obligation. This is explicitly an obligation. So I'm going to write a second book where nothing happens and a third book where everything is contrived."
Isn't the Grisha series a duology? Like, there has been, predating Powerless's publication, successful YA non-trilogy series. I think Grisha...
Okay. You mean like duologies or one-off books?
Yeah, there's a duology, like the Six of Crows, I think, is a duology. Anyways, so I don't know. I don't know.
Just think about the fact that, like, Powerless was written a long time ago and was like originally published on some like Wattpad-esque site, or was it literally Wattpad? I don't remember.
It might have been.
And then Reckless and Fearless both came out like years later, once Powerless became a traditionally published book and really blew up. So I'm wondering if like she just saw an opportunity to make money, which I can't blame her for like trying to make a bag if she was able to do so. But I do wonder. I'm not going to talk about the book as if that's the case, because if so, it shuts down all conversation, but I think it's worth considering.
We get another King Daddy flashback. This one features Queen Mommy II being offered by her father for marriage. So apparently Queen Mommy II is the daughter of some random advisor in King Daddy's court, and through no agency of her own is sold as property to King Daddy for political gain, which undermines the whole point of having a badass, cool, awesome queen. So I didn't like that. The other thing is, here's what's going to blow your gourd off, Jay.
A lot of gourds being blown off today.
Yeah, I guess so. Queen Mommy II is already pregnant, and King Daddy is not the father. Do you know what this means, Jay?
It means that we now have two potential moms and dads for Peyton.
Yeah, actually, that's. I'll leave it at that. I won't get to it yet. Just when Kai and Peyton are about to make up, they have this crazy attack from a sea serpent. It's like it's like a giant eel, and it has elite powers. There's this protracted fight scene. Peyton stabs it a bunch with a spear, and it goes away, and they go home.
Okay.
I don't know. Here's my thing about this whole second trial. It is impossible to verify that they did or did not do it. They could have just sailed halfway into the sea, thrown the roses in the water, and then come back and said, "Oh yeah, we talked to them. They said it's all good." Like, they don't come back with like a seal of approval from Zyla or anything like idiosyncratic to Isram. It's just they're back, and everyone's happy.
I hate to break it to you, Andrew, but there is a way they could have verified it quite easily.
How's that?
And that is by simply just bringing a site along and having the site being what they're seeing. I'm not kidding.
No,
I'm not
right.
kidding. I'm not
You're
kidding.
Right.
There is an in-universe way that we could have verified this that is unique to this universe. Like, Seal makes total sense, would be a very logical, fine explanation. But the more interesting, specific to this narrative universe tool that we could have used is the people who exist to beam whatever they are seeing back to the king for information. We could have had those people beam what they were seeing back to the king so that he would have the information.
And maybe they did and it just happened off screen or something. I don't know.
We literally have guys in the first book who run around these knockoff Hunger Games. They Naruto run behind Peyton, staring at her in the woods like psychopaths.
Yep.
But now we just forget that they ever existed.
Great. Anything could have happened, but here we are. Later on, Peyton wants to go visit Loot Alley just for fun, like to check off the Save the Cat beat, where towards the middle of your magical adventure, you go back home and just reflect on how much things have changed. It's kind of like Noah, where she walks around the slums and she's like, wow, inflation sure is crazy. There sure are a lot of homeless people out there. There's a lot of Keebler elves who have gone feral. But
how does she describe the homeless people, out of curiosity?
Not in any way that I found particularly interesting.
Okay. Because she takes another opportunity to be explicitly disparaging about them in Reckless for no reason.
Oh, really? Well, when you say disparaging, like the disgusting creatures crawled out of their filthy hovels or like shit like that.
You're not far off.
Okay.
You're not far off.
The only difference between this and Noah is like Peyton looks around and she's like, I'm going to fix this because I'm the queen now. She sees the trash fort, which is like in oddly very good condition, and runs into this guy named Mac, whom you may not know about, Jay, but is Adina's
The only Mac I know is from Handbook for Mortals.
Oh, true. So he's this is a crossover with Lanny Sarum. No, it's this is Adina's boyfriend from Powerful, the side novel that tells us the exciting story of Adina before she gets impaled. So anyways, right. Peyton has never met Mac. And presumably Mac has just been hanging out in the trash fort moping. Mac instantly recognizes...
what everybody else does.
Right, I guess so. Mac instantly recognizes Peyton. Somehow Peyton knows the story about Mac, but not like his physical description. So they realize who they are. He's really shitty to her because he blames her for Adina's death. A belief that I don't understand how he came to, because I don't know if per se Adina's death is Peyton's fault. I mean, she kind of did drag her into this whole situation, but...
that doesn't feel quite right to me. I mean, the only reason she died is because she was friends with Peyton.
Right. Which they could have just grabbed her off the street. It had nothing to do with her physical proximity to the castle, as I recall. They could have just grabbed her from Loot Alley and done the same thing if Adina didn't come on as a seamstress. Whatever. Then they just start crying and hugging, and that's the scene. So Kitt, meanwhile, has started to look sickly. I think he has sort of been sickly for a while now, but now it starts to be more like physically obvious. He'll have like veins in his forehead or bloodshot eyes, or he'll look pale and he loses a lot of weight. And I'm just like, okay, so he's gonna like die halfway through this book. Like that'll resolve the whole conflict right there. We have this physical description because Kai notices it when Kitt is like, hey Kai, you have a crush on Peyton. And that's the scene. So we have fully wrapped around and come to the terminal point of, hey, everyone knows. So here's where things start getting crazy.
Now that everybody knows, like, what happens? Like, where do we go from here if that's, like, the big thing?
Well, here's where things start going crazy in every direction but that.
Okay, great.
Peyton finally gets permission from Lauren Roberts to go fucking kill Blair. So she just
Okay.
She just sneaks off to her chambers. I don't know where Lenny is. There's some contrivance that like makes Lenny go somewhere else. So she takes advantage of that and sneaks into Blair's chambers. There's candles everywhere. I don't remember why. Like it almost feels ritualistic, but remember that there's candles there. And Blair's just like, I knew you were coming for me, Peyton. There's this really like half poignant moment where she's like, you want to kill me because I killed your friend. And the truth is, I feel bad about killing your friend. It haunts me, but I did what I had to do to survive in these twisted trials or whatever. You know,
The twisted trials.
the narrative goes out of its way to sit us down and sort of humanize Blair.
Okay, wait, she's not being manipulative there. She's being
I'm sure she's being manipulative, but like this is the first time that like Blair has ever been remotely apologetic for anything. I'm sure you could easily say, oh, this is just a manipulation tactic, but again, it hasn't happened before. So I was like, oh, is Peyton going to realize that like revenge is not the answer? Which I don't personally like. I don't like narratives like that, because coming up with the idea that you're not supposed to take revenge on the people who oppress you seems like something that an oppressor would make up so that you would be more docile. So I don't like this trope, but I thought that was what was coming, because again, there's a pause and Blair's like, here's my soliloquy to humanize me. Then Peyton tries to fight Blair. A fire breaks out because a candle gets knocked over, and Peyton holds Blair's face into the fire until her skin sloughs off and she dies in agony.
Lauren, I don't know who Blair is. I don't know if her name is Blair. I don't know what she did, but you need help. not to talk out of turn. I am psychoanalyzing, and sometimes when you psychoanalyze, you swing big and you miss.
Yep.
But listen, you're not swinging at all, so I'm gonna swing. And if it's a miss, then so be it. At least something happened. Lauren, you may be familiar with the word libido in the sense of sexual desire, and we will get back to that. But what you have just done is this is called satisfying a libidinal urge, in the sense that you are unable to realize something in your actual life. So you create a fictional world in which making this desire true is possible. I just need you to know that you've done that. And I would like for you now to do the work of thinking of what that urge was, where it stems from, and how we might respond differently in the future. Because this is not a sustainable practice.
No.
Fiction cannot supplant your life. Fiction is fiction. Fiction is a set of tools that exist for a purpose, and it's great that it served this purpose for you now. But now we need to move on.
So yeah, I think she passes out. Peyton passes out, and she wakes up, and like Kitt and Kai and Lenny are all there. And here's what gets me, and this is why I was being so annoying about remembering these details, is none of them care that Blair got her face melted off. None of these people who stopped her bodily several times care. They're just like, oh, you know, the Band-Aid's ripped off now that she's dead. Lenny says, I took care of the body. And that's it. That's the last we hear about Blair forever. So there's no funeral? Then I guess Lenny just chops her up and throws her into the slop fields. So, but okay.
I threw it in the fucking creek.
So I don't know what happened here, but I want you to remember that Lenny.
What about
said
the
that.
General Dad?
Right.
General Dad?
No, General Daddy's gone.
The whole reason that couldn't happen was because then General Dad would retaliate.
Right.
So does General Daddy appear?
No, General Daddy is never seen.
Okay, sure.
Blair stops being talked about after this. Lenny says, took care, sick, of the body, sick. So I need you to remember this, because I'm going crazy.
Well, yeah, because I know what you read earlier in the dramatic readings.
Right. So
what did Lenny do?
What did Lenny do? So they recover. None of that matters. A flirting scene in Kai's room gets interrupted when Kitt shows up there, and Peyton hides in a closet and overhears the third trial is a secret, but it's going to be in the bowl for once. And later on, Peyton just gets unceremoniously plucked up and shoved inside the bowl with the sword, and King Kitt is like, you gotta fight every different type of elite. And Payne's just like, what could that possibly mean?
Is he gonna like send them out one after the other, like gladiator style? So she has to like prove that she can counteract every possible power.
Oh, you foolish fool. That's technically an alliteration. You have forgotten, my dear Jay, that someone who can take someone's powers technically has all elite powers. She has to fight.
That's not true, but go on.
She has to fight Kai. Kai in a gladiatorial arena. The fight is so protracted. It's well written, shrug emoji, but it goes on for several chapters, and we see like
chapters.
Well, I mean, chapters here is like, 5 pages per. But it's still chapters. Sure. But Payton's just like, I can't hold back because he will kill me. There's no way. Either he dies or I die. Well, I guess I die. And the fight goes on. It resolves right at the tree that Adina died at the end of Powerless.
I thought that the tree was there because the plant people made it. I didn't think it was like a permanent fixture of the bowl.
Well, maybe they just didn't get it removed. I don't know.
They just left it there like, oh, it's kind of nice. I sort of like the murder tree.
Right. So, yeah, no, like, it's just the murder tree. And Payton's back is against the trunk of the tree, and Kai's bearing down on her, and she's just like, yes, let me die like my friend Adina, who is not alive anymore, and my father, who is not my father. Like, she's literally thinking about this. I'm bringing it up for a reason. And then Kai, like, falls on her dagger. Like, she gets like a second wind, or like Kai starts to get sloppy, and then Kai freaking dies. Kai gets stabbed in the chest and bleeds out.
Really?
Or does he?
And fall on her dagger? Oh, okay.
I don't know. No, like kills himself, I mean, or like throws the fight.
Wow. Okay. Sure. Why not?
Payton wakes up in her room. She's delirious and in denial, which I also am because this is so weird. But it's okay because
we still don't know what the fourth fatal is, and I predicted in the first episode that the fourth fatal was going to be somebody that could bring somebody back from the dead. Is this where we find out that there is a fatal that can bring people back from the dead, and Kitt, or King Daddy, and now Kitt has had one on retainer the whole time?
That would be what happened if this book was good, because I don't remember that. I don't remember there being a fourth secret fatal. But maybe there's one.
They mentioned that there were 4, I think, and then they only named like 3 in the first book. Or maybe it wasn't going to be a fatal. We were just talking about there might still be a power that brings people back from the dead. I don't remember why we brought that up. But...
Kai is alive! Yay! So Kai, Kai spent most of the fight drugged. Now, you might be asking, what does that mean, drugged? Well, you see, Kai was just laying on his bed, Family Guy style, this entire time. It was never Kai in the fight.
It was a clone, because he's a cloner.
That would have been better too. But no, Jay.
Oh.
It was Mac, Adina's boyfriend, with like a glamour or whatever. Apparently he had glamour powers, or he might have had like Kai's powers. I don't remember what he had, but whatever he had allowed him to transfigurate into Kai. So Mac is actually dead, but Kai is not. And this is supposed to be very sad and poignant for us because it meant that Mac chose against his hatred for Payton and wanted to join up with Adina. He says, like, as he's dying, we think it's Kai at the time, but as he's dying, Max says, "See you in the sky." And that's supposed to be like, oh, he's going to heaven to join Adina or whatever.
Oh, I get it. So he wanted to die because Adina is dead.
Right.
And he wanted to be with Adina, who is dead and not alive.
Right.
So he also had to transition from the state of living into death.
Right. I think that's how it worked. So now it's time for the pre-wedding ceremony. You know, she's got all the trials away. It's time for the court meeting before the wedding ceremony because we need more meetings to say what we already know. Yep. I love a good meeting scene. Like I talked about it in Noah too, but only when you're giving me information and character interactions that have not been hitherto explained.
Yeah.
Peyton is so sexy and awesome. There's a heckler, and she uses like deductive reasoning for the first time this entire book, maybe the first time since the beginning of Powerless, to like say
She actually does use it in Reckless a bit.
Oh, thank God.
I just didn't mention it in my summary.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even remember what she deduces, but she's just like, you're a loser, and I'm not, so I'm your queen now. So suck it.
According to my calculations, you're cringe.
Right, and it works, and it's great. She does like a Sherlock Holmes explanation of how she dealt with the heckler in like the after party with Kitt and Kai, and it's fun, but it also feels like a very naked lampshade. I've been practicing all my life, that's why I'm so good at it, but I guess I just haven't needed to use it in a while. So but I totally can if I want to at any time.
I just didn't feel like it.
Then it's the day before the wedding, and Peyton's just like having an existential crisis, and she just runs around. She runs all the way to the willow tree where Kai's dead sister lives, and Kai is waiting for her, presumably shirtless. They make out. It starts raining and lightning. I will say, Kai is an absolute king in the situation. At every like checkpoint of their sex cutscene, he checks for consent. He presses X to check for consent, and I think that is really great. I just really appreciate that they didn't just go to town on each other like weasels.
I'm glad that this evil manipulator that for the course of 3 books was like, I'm interested in you, but I can't be with you.
Yep.
When it finally came time for them to do the deed, he wanted to make sure that his manipulation had paid off and that he had successly tricked her into thinking that she wanted it.
Okay,
I'm really glad, Andrew. Yeah, you're right, actually. Now that you spell it out for me, I feel very reassured.
See, this is why this is such a lesser experience of the trilogy, because I missed out on the manipulation. He wasn't that manipulative and powerless. He was just like a bad boy.
All he does in Reckless is like, we can't be together, so whenever we kiss, we just have to pretend that we have a future. And then when we're not together, we have to pretend that we're not interested. It's all just fake.
How is that manipulative? That's what you have to do in this horrible, fraught world they live in.
Okay, I'm not answering that.
Okay.
Carry on.
Whatever. Then it's the wedding day, and Kitt shows up to give her his mother's jewelry box, which will be important later because talk about fucking Freudian. After having sex with her brother-in-law over the corpse of her sister-in-law, she is asked by her husband to wear his mother's jewelry. He wants jewelry that his mother owned to be present in the ceremony, so it would be like she's there with them. This, Jasmine Moss, is how you do a reluctant wedding. I love the tension here. It's the same level of like you feel bad and you're like almost nauseated by how fucked up of a situation this is, but like it's just so much better because it's not blood of Heracles. I don't know.
And the narrative doesn't seem like it's low-key in favor of the protagonist suffering in this way for our sexual delight.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, Peyton's just like really bothered by the opulence. She's like, I grew up in a place where one of these jewels could feed an entire street's worth of people. And like, I thought that was great. And, you know, it's very reluctant, but she's like, you know, this is for the greater good. There's a distinct reason that she would want to go through with this, even though she doesn't like want it romantically. Kitt is this fucked up guy, but you kind of hope that he's going to do the right thing in the end. And you're always like, this entire time, I'm always like, you know, so if Kitt knows about the crush and he's okay with it and he's not interested in Peyton really that much, he could have the marriage as a sham, allow Peyton and Kai to be romantically together, pass off any heirs as his own, and like, I don't know, like I am coming from like a Song of Ice and Fire in fantasy, but like I feel like there's a way they can make this work and have everyone be decently happy.
Yeah, it would be like unconventional, but every person involved could be individually like pretty happy.
Right. It could be something. So And again, just the fact that it's not blood of Heracles, is just so much better.
Always take that.
We will always take that. There will be 2 ceremonies. This one is the opulent one, and the second one is going to be in Loot Alley to show ordinary solidarity.
My dear, let's have a poor wedding for the poor people.
Literally. So the rich wedding doesn't really matter. Kai doesn't even show up until like right after they call for objections, and that's played for like such a tragedy. It's like, if only I had made it in time. Like he was avoiding it, but then he was like, no, I have to be there. And then he just comes up right to see the vows being exchanged. The poor wedding is either like the same day or very quick after the rich wedding. Nothing really matters about the rich wedding other than that it's like legally binding. Kai's sad about it. Peyton is also kind of sad about it. So between ceremonies, I don't remember why she did it. Maybe she like forgot to wear the jewelry for the rich person wedding, or maybe she wanted different jewelry for the poor people wedding. She goes back through Queen Mommy the First's jewelry box, and she finds in the bottom of the box a note from Queen Mommy the First's secret lover. It just says like, meet me in the garden, you're beautiful. It doesn't say anything interesting, but it's a note from a lover. And also a photograph of Queen Mommy the First.
Wait, a photograph? Like a
not okay. Well, hold it actually has a pretty understandable reason, but it's not a daguerreotype, it's not a tin type, it's not a silver etching, it's a photograph. What you do,
okay, it's like a sketch.
You take a site and you take a transfer and you impose it on a piece of paper, and that's what happens, I guess. Which, okay, sure, if you can do that, why don't they have videos?
Exactly. No, this is good. Like, because it indicates that you can have enchanted items, like we talked about in the first episode. So, like, why, Lauren? Why did you tee yourself up? Why did you set a precedent for this and then just act as if no one remembers that you can do this? Why are people not doing this all the time?
I don't know, Jay. So the photograph of Queen Mommy the First looks very, very familiar, let's say. It looks just like Peyton. Dun, dun, dun. So apparently, and this is the biggest fucking apparently that I could possibly append to a sentence, Callum is Peyton's dad, and Queen Mommy the First is her mom. Callum was always working for King Daddy as his mind reader, and the king just let the resistance grow so that all the ordinaries would be gathered in one place so they'd be easier to kill. And then so Peyton was the baby from one of the King Daddy flashbacks that was born of King Mommy the First and decided to be powerless. He was supposed to have gotten rid of her, but the silencer, whoever, took mercy and gave the baby Peyton to Adam Gray. And it's just like, so then when Peyton returned, King Daddy was like, this is good news. We'll use her to teach the resistance about the tunnels, which will make them easier to kill. The entire time, King Daddy thought that Peyton was his daughter because he didn't know that Queen Mommy had a secret lover.
Oh, so he knew that Peyton was the daughter of Queen Mommy the First, but he didn't know that that daughter was the result of a relationship that excluded him.
Right.
And he let the so he had her disposed of. And then they took care of the body, sick.
Yeah.
And then he knew that it was her though when she showed up for the trials somehow.
Yeah, because she looks so much like his wife, Queen Mommy the First.
Okay, fair enough, I guess. Sure. And in the in-between time, he let the resistance grow because that way he could keep an eye on all of the rebellious ordinaries.
Yes, and literally to gather them in one place. Because apparently they're normally scattered. But if there's a resistance where they mass together, I guess that works somehow.
So that he could kill them all at once.
So he can kill them all at once. Right.
It seems internally consistent enough, I guess.
Sure, yeah, it's not infeasible, I guess. Maybe improbable. So conveniently, King Daddy already had Queen Mommy hidden away from the public eye. I don't remember why. I think there was a reason given, but it's not a very solid one, that Queen Mommy just was like never seen around. So that even when she had Kitt, no one knew about Kitt. So they just lied and said that Queen Mommy died in childbirth, giving birth to Kitt. But when really it was Peyton whose birth killed Queen Mommy the First.
How many people are they going to hide? Because Ava was also hidden from the public because she was sickly, and it was expected that she would die as a child, which she did. But the king didn't want anybody to see her in the in-between time because he didn't want anyone to think that his children were weak, yeah. Which I guess would indicate his blood or virility were weak.
Ew. So that's a very interesting call out to make, because this entire time, again, all the Ava exposition is in book 2. So the entire time, I'm like, is Peyton Ava? Because I got confused about whose child Ava was, and there was a scene of a girl child being gotten rid of, but she was ordinary, meaning that that's definitely Peyton, and Ava apparently did have powers. She was just a sickly person physically. Yes. Ava does not come up once in this entire diatribe of exposition and plot twists. So make of that what you will.
I think that kind of makes sense because I believe Ava is the child of Queen Mommy the Second.
Right. Queen Mommy the Second and King Daddy.
Okay.
Yes. So great. Yeah, and she post-dates all of this happening. Like, we're talking about things that have happened 18 years ago. Kitt and Peyton marrying, we already knew was Callum's idea, but now it's Callum's idea for a sinister reason, because he never gave up loyalty to the king. And also, Peyton would have just been executed in book 1 because King Daddy just wanted to kill her, but Callum convinced him to leave her alive to, again, tell the ordinaries about the tunnels, to strengthen the resistance so that they could all be in the same place, to like be a pawn in this weird game of chess. Also,
oh no.
all this exposition is delivered in a couple paragraphs that Peyton just ascertains as she's looking at this photograph. While she's doing this, Callum is standing in the threshold like, hey, I brought you flowers or whatever for your wedding, whatever. It's stupid. He was gonna walk her down the aisle and give her away as like the father figure, which ironically enough, anyways, also, Callum is a duel. He has mind control powers as well as his mind reading powers, which...
Oh, so he's a fatal, but also a duel, but also an elite.
Right. I don't know.
Okay.
So the reason Peyton ascertains this is because Kitt's, always doing what Callum says to do, and he's been getting weirdly sickly lately. He just hasn't been himself almost this entire book, probably all of this entire book, but especially recently, he's just been messed up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that explains a lot. This is just another Darai situation where the evil, creepy man was the bad guy the whole time, and he has mind control powers. I was like, I was ready for this just to end like Nexus did, like down to the detail, but no. But no, Jay, because that would be too easy, and it might even have been good. And I want you to also know that if Peyton is correct, then Callum will never use his mind control powers in anything that I'm about to describe or anything that I have been describing so far. They fight, like physically fight. Peyton knocks him out with the like butt of her dagger, and she just runs away. And that's the big twist for now, anyways. Any thoughts so far?
Is it possible that he was using his mind control powers to make Kitt just accept his presence in the second book? Like,
sure.
Would that explain why he just shows up again?
Sure.
Without any reintroduction?
They explain it away before this twist that Kitt just ran into him in the dungeons, because there were a lot of
Right.
ordinaries in the dungeons that Kitt, by his own admission, doesn't know what to do with. And my understanding was always that, you know, they just started talking, and I think that still holds up even post twist. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, sure.
So we'll leave it at that. So now that
he's not going to use his control powers at all throughout the rest of the. Even though he. Okay, sure, great. That was my only question.
I'll talk about that more. But now that you know of Hayden's true lineage, is there anything that you think is kind of weird?
So her dad is Callum.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom is Queen Mommy the First. Both of those people have powers.
Right.
So Peyton should have some kind of power.
She should. That's what makes her so special. Her ordinariness is what makes her special. But you know what else is special, Jay? Is marrying your half-sibling. See, Peyton has just married her half-brother by way of Queen Mommy the First and Callum.
Because Kitt and her share a mother.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay.
But if she were to end up with Kai, she would not share any blood with him.
No blood.
Okay.
So, in case you're wondering where this narrative is going.
Well, they don't love each other anyway, so it's weird that they're married, but they don't like each other.
Right.
And they don't want to have intercourse. So I'm not particularly concerned, especially not by the standards of, I don't know, royal wedding weirdness. I don't know if I mentioned, but I do live in Austria, and we're kind of known for like the Habsburgs over here, and they kind of got up to some of that. So I guess in my worldly travels, I've just been sort of inoculated to that kind of thing. It's like not a big deal.
Right. Me in the southern United States doesn't know anything about marrying cousins or siblings.
Right. It's very foreign to you. I understand.
Right. Peyton, she's running away. She just leaves Callum knocked out, not killed. For plot-related purposes, you could just tell that she needs to cash in on this. Peyton runs up to Kitt and explains everything that we just learned. Kitt's basically just like, slow down, toots, we gotta take this one step at a time, or whatever. Like, he's not buying it. And just as Peyton is explaining to Kitt, like, that she thinks he's being mind-controlled, Callum shows back up. He's just like, hey guys. And Kitt takes out his ceremonial wedding sword and kills Callum. Just drives it right through his heart. And that's it.
That's awesome, actually. I love that.
There's no, like, he's not resisting. He's like, get out of my head. But he's not, like, resisting mind control like, what the guy's name is from Nexus. What's his stupid name? The little gay prince.
The little gay prince.
Anyways, whatever the little gay prince was doing in Nexus, he's not doing anything like that.
Friend's brother, yes? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. So anyways, Kai shows up and Kitt's just like, well, good thing we killed that guy. Anyways, it's time for the second ceremony. They have to do the second ceremony. They're like, we got to keep this good. Well, they have a reason for like keeping up the charade because, like, you know, they have this revelation, but the last thing they need in this precarious time is to go back on their word. Like, I get it. And again, you know, the Habsburg thing, like, I could even understand like this ending in the actual legal marriage solidifying and all this stuff, but that's not what we're going to get either. And then they just have their wedding ceremony in Loot Alley, right by the statue of John Lute. I want to point out something, and I don't know. I want to point out that we see the poor wedding ceremony from Kai's perspective, and he knows that they are half siblings, but he still is broody, like he's taking her away from me. I will never be with her ever again, and like. I wonder if it's like from an earlier draft, because it's ridiculous to me how he thinks that like this should be carte blanche to like do whatever he wants now, because it's definitely a sham now.
Yeah. Wait, and how does he know that? Did she tell him, or does he just know it for no reason?
No.
Okay.
he's there when Peyton is giving the exposition about like what Callum's whole deal is, and Kai's like,
yeah, and he's still like, oh, she's totally gonna have sex with her half brother now.
literally, yeah, like, so like I hope it's from an earlier draft and didn't get edited, because I don't understand the implications of it otherwise, or I don't like them.
I don't know. This is giving me a lot of ammunition. I'm about to drop a bombshell on you in a bit. This is gonna be crazy.
So yeah, I'm screaming, just have the pretend marriage, and then Kai and Peyton can hook up, and they'll pass off any children as legitimate heirs. Everyone's happy. Anyways, Kai and Kitt, they go to the kitchen. They go to the kitchen from book 1, where the kindly old lady is there, and
the sticky bun lady.
Yeah, with the sticky bun lady. And they just mull over what happened, and Kai starts to put 2 and 2 together, because there's yet another intentional plot hole where the timeline doesn't add up for him to be the son of King Daddy and Queen Mommy II. I don't understand that timeline. Just take it for granted that like there's no way that Kai could have been born when he was supposed to have been born if Kitt and Peyton are siblings. So he's like, wait, how does that work? Blah blah blah. There's no place for me in this story. I'm just a monster that they've discarded. He says shit like that. It's so annoying. So then Kitt, Kai, and Peyton meet up in the king's chambers to talk more about it, because apparently it's
Good Lord.
So apparently, and I could have missed something, or this could be like a book 2 detail, but apparently it's very suspicious that Kitt could just walk up to somebody and kill them. Kitt's supposed to be a very sensitive guy, allegedly, and killing should not come easy to him. Like, does that make sense to you?
Not really.
Okay. Well,
I don't think of him as sensitive. He seems very unstable in book 2. Like half of his updates are him like scribbling madly on a piece of parchment.
Really?
He's writing stuff like hold on, let me find it.
You may not need to, because I think the last 20 pages of my book are just exactly what you're about to read, but you can keep going.
Okay, I can't find the scribbling madly at the moment. It is everywhere, so if I had flipped to a different page, I'd be able to find it. But instead, I found this other moment where he visits the kitchen lady, funnily enough. And what happens is she incidentally reminds him that it's Ava's birthday and that Kai should have come by the kitchen to pick up a sweet roll to drop off at the grave. And because Kai is still in the desert looking for Peyton, he wasn't there to do that. And that causes Kitt to have like a very public freak out where he he refuses the sweet roll extremely dramatically, and then like a bunch of people are coming into the kitchen to get ready for dinner, and he's like pushing past all of them, and he's like, let me out. Like, he doesn't seem sensitive or sweet, he seems like disturbed.
Yeah, Kai and Peyton are both very disturbed that Kitt could kill so easily, because apparently that's the enforcer's job. It's not Kitt's doing, or it's not Kitt's job to do.
Okay, well, the old king killed people and he wasn't an enforcer.
Whatever. So apparently Kitt knew all of this plot twist already and just accidentally forgot to take the letters out when he gave Peyton the jewelry box. So he knew all of this stuff from the get-go and just sloppily forgot to take out this plan ruiningly giant bombshell information. He forgot. So
he is into her, even though he knows that they're related.
Not quite, Jay.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
He says, Kai, you ruined everything. It was supposed to just be me and you, but this girl came in and she took you from me, and I hate her. So
what?
No, I'm serious. Like he's like, you're my brother, Kai. I want to go back to when it was just you and me. I hate this girl for coming into our lives.
Going in a different direction.
Oh, no. Not what you're thinking.
I was like, oh my god, they have been wrestling shirtless for like years. Maybe
no.
There was so much of that in the first book. Like,
Kai and Peyton leave him there and then go to Queen Mommy II, and then they just demand answers to these plot twists. And the queen just tells us what we already know from the King Daddy flashbacks. And then Kitt shows back up. He just runs after them, I guess, and he chooses this moment to go insane. He does the thing at the end of Death Note where he laughs like a maniac and says, I planned this out from the very beginning. It was me the whole time. He's like, I hate my dad. I hate Payton, and I have a secret plan to spread the plague all over the world. Like, the roses that they sent to Isram are laced with plague. So the point of opening the borders...
The plague that gives people magic.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
No, he wants to create an elite world, not just an elite society. So
Why? But the other nations hate Ilya if they all got superpowers all of a sudden. Ilya is a resource-depleted, ally-less nation with an inexperienced king who thinks he's an anime protagonist. They're gonna fucking die. All the other nations would be like, we are going to beat you to death. Like, okay.
Okay, hold on. So that was the point of the open borders. He doesn't care about the economy. He doesn't care about poor people. He just wants to spread the plague. And again, I'm not making a political statement, but just remember that I do believe that the plague is an analog for COVID. The plague was a man-made thing to strengthen Ilya. And he has been microdosing himself with it this entire time, which is why he's been getting sickly. And I don't know why he's doing it other than to like do an experiment. Like, he's not even getting more powerful. He doesn't even seem to want to be more magically powerful. He's just been injecting himself with the plague. He's just been injecting himself with the plague.
He's been Valen core-tossing himself.
Valen! He's Valen, yes.
Wait, Valen Solus, sorry.
Yeah,
I forgot.
And here's the craziest part of all of this, is that Callum has never been mind-controlling him in the first place. He never liked Payton at all. He never had any undue influence from Callum, so he might not actually be a mind controller after all. Like, that might just be completely incorrect on Payton's part, because again, he never uses it in media res, and Kitt claims to be completely independent this entire time. My mind is melting right now.
Oh my god.
So
I'm still digesting all of this. This is like, it's twist after twist after twist.
Right. It's layers. So Kai and Kitt fight. They fight so much, and Payton calls it beautiful, like twice within as many paragraphs. Like they do it like they used to spar. And Kai kills Kitt this time for real. Like
okay, sure. Good.
And it's super tragic. And then the tone
is the mom watching all this? Is Queen Mommy II? Are we still in her room?
I don't know. I think it would be better to imagine that she is watching it, but I don't know if like they
is way
ran
funnier.
Around. Like, I don't remember like a specific scene transition, so maybe she was in a different place or whatever. I don't know. It's funnier to imagine that you hear beep beep while these things. The tone shifts completely, and Kai's like, Kitt, you were supposed to dodge. Why would you not dodge? And Kitt's just like, I don't want to be a monster. Please remember me as a good person. And Payton and Kai are like, we do think you're a good person. We love you so much. You're just sick right now, and you'll be better soon. But Kai can't find a healer, and it's just so fucked up.
This is weak. This is weak shit. This is like, I have zero tolerance for ambiguity type writing. This is like baby brain garbage.
They bury him underneath the willow tree, where heavy petting and the burial of a sister have both occurred.
Twice heavy petting.
Right.
And now twice burial. We got repetition on repetition.
There's this completely atonal, terrible scene where they're digging the grave, and Kai and Payton like flirt fight about who can dig the grave the fastest. It's like sociopath shit. It's really bad. I don't understand.
Okay.
We're almost done. And then they find the stack of journal entries or letters or whatever that Kai did, that Jay, you were alluding to, and we read each and every single one of them. It's
Are they printed in like an eye-bleedingly terrible font?
they are in the worst font I've ever seen.
Okay, because the snippets of Daddy Gray's journals that we get in this book are in this awful script font.
Oh yeah. I think it's the exact same one. Here, I'm gonna try to do this.
Terrible. I felt my pace of reading slow as I was trying to get through it, as I was trying to pick out individual words.
It's really bad, but I read all of them, and it's like this is esoteric and really random, but I swear this is true. I highly recommend watching this. There's a series of animations on YouTube by Brad Neely called China, Illinois, which is the exact same plot. So it's about, the characters find a journal from someone who had died, who they thought was like their friend, only to realize that this person had always secretly intensely hated all of them and wanted them all to die. And it's exactly what happens here in Powerless. There's just a million pages of Kai being like, I hate my dad, I want my brother back, I hate Peyton, I want to kill all ordinaries. I love
Is that what
elites.
he was writing in the second book? Because in the second book they make it sound like all he's writing is like, I need Peyton, I need her so bad, she's everything.
Wait, really?
They don't explicitly say that, but they suggest it.
Okay. Well then, okay, that's good. So there's no like actual contradiction there.
No.
It's just people's
I don't think
assumptions.
so.
No, but while you thought that was happening, he was writing, I want to kill Peyton so bad, but I need her for political gain. So it's just terrible.
Okay.
And then Kai and Peyton get married. Yay. That's it. 5 years later, Kai and Peyton have a daughter named Kitt. They have a daughter named Kitt. They named their daughter after the crazy man.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. No, they don't. Take it back.
No. It's true. They have a daughter named Kitt with one T.
After reading the like school shooter manifesto that he wrote about them?
Yep. After reading the manifesto, they're like, that's who I should name my daughter after.
The guy who was like genocidal? Okay, sure. Wait, we can get into this and we will.
They're in Andor Tondo looking for the best they're looking for corn. They're doing some like trade deal about corn, literally corn. And
okay. All right.
Little Kitt is just running around being saccharine, and it's all so stupid. It's stupid, and they're like, they kiss each other and talk about how cute everything is. And here's where something crazy happens.
Oh, this is where something crazy happens.
Here's
I
where
need to
the thing that
recategorize
I
some things
actually,
that previously happened.
here's where the thing I actually give a shit about happens. So Peyton's hugging Kitt, the daughter Kitt, and she sees what's described as a flash of lilac. And then in the middle distance is what is maybe poetically, maybe literally described as a specter and a ghost of Blair herself. Yeah. And
yes.
she just kind of
In
nods.
In Anor Tondo.
In Anor Tondo, yes. And Blair just kind of nods in solemn forgiveness. I have zero clue whether this is like an actual ghost like I mentioned, or there's a hand bursting from the gravesite of marked Blair and she just walks to Tondo one day. Like, I don't understand what the hell happened there, but that's crazy to me.
What on earth? This has got to be some kind of, and I mean this figuratively, not literally, but like some kind of pathological obsession with like closing every single loose end up and making it so that it's like a happy ending.
Yeah.
Like everything must be okay. Like I must have a completely satisfying, completely conclusive ending where nobody's mad at anybody. Everything is fine forever. Don't worry about it.
Beyond the need for closure, there's the logic of it, and I've talked about this trope before. This amazing literary concept that I coined the term of. I'm sure there's a different TV tropes word for it, but I call it habeas corpus. If you don't see the body, if you don't see it bleeding out on the street, then there is a good chance that the person is still alive. We don't have habeas corpses here. We see the skin slough off her face, and then Lenny says, "I took care of the body," which is either a lie or incredibly evasive, or maybe she could have survived by some other means. I don't know. It's so weird.
That's so weird, because I would think that if somebody was going to detect that she was secretly alive, it would be Lenny, because he's a hyper, and so if she had like an extremely faint heartbeat, or she was just barely breathing, he would be the one person we know that would detect it. If you would think that like he would hear the blood moving through her veins or something, like, because that is the only thing that hypers can do narratively. So like, why? And if she is a ghost, why her? Like, why is she the manifestation of Payton's blah 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 blah? Like,
I don't know.
It doesn't follow. Like, there's no narrative logic.
I have no idea. Maybe I missed something. I'll own up to that. Maybe Blair survives.
Why is it not Adina? Of all things, like, wouldn't we rather know like that Adina is like a force ghost or something, like with her boyfriend?
Well, Jay, let me tell you about the epilogue. Let me tell you about the epilogue.
This was not scripted. This was not scripted. I need everybody to know that was not scripted.
Well, I could be wrong. Again, I could be wrong about this too. So the epilogue is from Kitt's perspective. Now, Jay, you might be asking, what do you mean? Isn't Kitt dead?
The child.
No. So the Kitt brother, the brother Kitt.
Oh. All right, great. Awesome, cool.
So the epilogue is from Kitt's perspective in literal actual heaven, or literal actual purgatory or something.
Sweet, so we're going to meet Death now, right?
We're going to meet Death. Capital D, Death. Her name is Mara. They're all just like incorporeal stars. I've just kind of pictured it as like little orbs floating in the nothingness. And
God stars, got it.
Right. I've never heard the term Mara before in this book. I thought it would have been like established before as like a death god or something, or like there was something about him like intuitively knowing that was her name. Anyways, Mara is like, you are the sins of your father, Kitt, but you must deal with the things that you have done. And then Mara leaves him in the nothingness for a while, and he wanders through the darkness, and there are two stars, one with a female voice and one with a male voice. And the two stars are like, we were separated in life, but death brought us together. And Kitt's just like, can you sit with me for a little while longer? And the stars are like, sure. And that is the end of Powerless, the trilogy by Lauren Roberts. Just fundamentally unparsable. Like,
wow.
I guess
this is unbelievable. Like, I'm really struggling to actually believe that you're telling me the truth right now. This is somehow... Okay, so... God, I was going to say that this is almost as crazy as Nova's playlist, but that was A, hyperbolic, and B, I know someone's going to be like, no way, Lightlark is totally crazier than this. But this feels crazier to me because the first book is a blatant discount Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. And then in the second book, literally nothing happens. And then you just described the third book to me. And that spectrum somehow makes this feel as detached from reality as Nova's playlist is. This is like insane.
Let's go ahead and get into that, actually, because I think you're right. I'm trying to come up with a metaphor for it, but I guess there is no metaphor for it. So with Powerless, there was a discrete, defined thing that it was. And whether that's good or bad, and whether she did it good or bad is not for this discussion, but she executed it to commercial success. And once you get past that point, the guide rails aren't there for you. So that's why there was a whole lot of nothing, is like a train or a plane getting up to speed where it takes a while to get going. But eventually it coalesces into something where these things take on identities of their own. But now suddenly here we are 2/3 of the way through, and everything that Lauren might have wanted to do in book 2 or even book 1, but she couldn't do it because we've seen that she struggles to, order these plot points in a way that's behooving of the narrative. She has this free space now, but it's vanishingly small, which is why there's so much happening here. Nothing in this book, I think, could never have happened. And as stupid and multi-layered as the twist is, again, I don't have a problem with any of it, but it does not breathe. And I think that's the biggest problem here. As a trilogy, it does not breathe.
Yeah, totally not. It's like 3 discrete things. It's kind of interesting because, like, on a macro level, it has the same problem as the problem that Powerless had on a more micro level. Like you said, that Powerless was pitched as Hunger Games meets Red Queen and or Sherlock or whatever, or Psych. And your criticism of Powerless, one of your main ones, was that, like, that's not actually true. It's actually a bunch of adjacent rooms that contain either Psych or Hunger Games. This series, you would think, would be an evolution of the premise of Hunger Games meets Psych that eventually adopts its own identity and, like, finds some kind of hybridization of those that's interesting. But instead, each book is its own discrete room where Lauren Roberts, like, flails about trying to figure out what this series actually is.
And the rooms are themselves made up of discrete boxes.
Even more fragmented.
Right.
Yeah.
This entire work is modular.
Yes, definitely. It's totally fractal. Like, in the way that it's like just a collection of random discrete parts. In the same way that Nova's playlist kind of felt like at times like Lauren M. Davis was just picking toys out of a toy box. This feels like Lauren Roberts is just like pointing at things she finds interesting, is like, all right, we're gonna do that now.
And I don't think my Minecraft metaphor in book 2 was an accident with the procedural generation thing, because it's a sandbox game. And I think we're seeing Lauren exercise on a hamster wheel, basically. And by the time she gets her feet under her, and again, I loved this book. I thought it was stupid, and I thought the things that happened were kind of dumb, but I had a great time with it. Like, these characters feel like people who aren't real, but they exist in this book. This world feels a lot more understandable. There's more lip service given to, the broader universe that they inhabit, but too little too late, I guess.
Mine was miserable. Yeah, mine didn't have any of that stuff that you just said. But I think the Minecraft analogy really does hold, because in the same way that, like, Minecraft chunks kind of make sense individually, like they each contain, part of an ecosystem, if you zoom out enough, the Minecraft world that you have generated doesn't make sense, like, ecologically, by real world standards or whatever. It's like a question, like you're saying, of scale. And I think that, like, the thing that happens in this book is that, like, each scene follows logically from the scene that came before, in the same way that each Minecraft chunk follows logically from its adjacent chunks. But if you zoom out far enough on this book, things at the end don't connect to things at the beginning, and this desert does not make sense next to this tundra. It's just a question of how far you want to zoom out and what you want to look at. If you're a casual reader, I guess, just literally letting this punch you moment to moment. I was going to say wash over, but I felt more like I was being pummeled. And you like that, then you'll probably have a good enough time, because it'll keep you occupied. But if you're interested in engaging with any of the ideas that it introduces, you can forget it, because each punch is a discrete blow to your body, and they're not actually related in any thematic or symbolic way.
Right. And I wonder if that is a testament to how the book was written. Going back to the modularity thing, going and adding that to the fact that you cannot zoom out and see a cohesive whole. Characters, I've noticed, rarely acknowledge the immediate past. They will acknowledge the distant past. They'll acknowledge, things that happened way long ago, but, like, what happened a week ago, a month ago, isn't necessarily part of it. And there is, an order of events. We know that the trials happened here and that the second trials happened there. But what I mean is, like, with Blair's death, for instance, that gets dropped out of nowhere. This huge thing that, like, multiple characters were against comes and goes, and nothing happens with it. And I think that Lauren wrote it intentionally like that, so that in the edit, she could mix and match these scenes however she wanted to do. And it creates this weird like factory feeling where like anything that happened in Jay's book could have been in pretty much any order, and I don't think it would have made too much of a difference which fight scene goes where. And I think that's
No, not at all.
by design and a mistake that Lauren made when conceiving of this, or at least, I don't know. I don't want to say this is the wrong way to write a book, but I do want to say that it's not working for this project.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. If that is Lauren's method, though, that is potentially rather ingenious, I think.
It could be
I think
genius.
that you could use it in the same way that you've talked about using Lightlark's marketing strategy for good as opposed to for slop. You could use that strategy for good as opposed to for slop.
And
it's all in the how. It's rarely in the what.
Right. Lauren might just be someone who likes editing more than writing. And maybe that's why I like her so much, is because I also like editing more than writing. And it's probably very fun to mix and match these boxes at the end of the day. But I just don't think this is working, latticing correctly.
I could absolutely see her writing all the flirt fight scenes in Reckless independently of each other, probably one-handed, and then mixing and matching them into like what feels like an escalation to her.
Sure.
And then being like, boom, this is a book.
It almost is.
Technically, it is.
This will be the rest of my life, forced to love her from a distance, mourn the loss of her each day. I will smother every emotion but the one that belongs to her. I will love her until I'm incapable of the feeling. She is the torture I may not survive. Eagerly, she is my undoing. Her gaze lifts, meeting eyes that are not my own, eyes of the man that gets to have her, if she allows it. She was supposed to be mine forever, but now I'll watch her become someone else's, because the beast doesn't get the beauty.
Oh my, tell me that's from the very end.
That is the last page of the book.
Okay, thank God, because that is everything from Kai's perspective for all of book 3. That's actually crazy.
Good Lord.
That's all we're gonna get.
Pros aside, what this makes possible is the reality that France exists in this world, which I think is horrifying. It sort of was overshadowed by the tone of my summary, but the first couple chapters of Reckless are really firing on all cylinders, I think. I mean, fundamentally, this is like a kind of a pulpy, low fantasy, whimsical romance novel, right? And the gimmick is that the lovers are not really enemies to lovers, but they're like frenemies the entire time. And that's exactly what you're getting at the beginning of Reckless. There's a dumb prologue for some reason where Kai visits Ava's grave and is like, "It's your birthday," and it's like, I don't care. But like skipping over that into the first chapter where like Peyton is picking up a cache, escaping a burning building. Kai is setting a building on fire, chasing after Peyton. They almost kill each other once or twice. Basically everything until she escapes into the desert is good. It's energetic, it's fast-paced, it doesn't slump in the immediate aftermath of the first book, which obviously was a pace that Lauren Roberts could not or did not want to maintain. But I was quite optimistic at the start of this book, and I enjoyed it, which, I don't know, can't always say that about any parts of the books that we read. I thought it was legitimately fun.
That's interesting. I had almost the opposite experience with book 3, where the pacing was very lopsided, where sometimes, and it wasn't just the beginning, but sometimes it would go at a really great clip, everything's super excited, I really want to see what happens next, and then other times, usually when Peyton and Kai are flirting, that I just completely lose interest, or I've seen it before, and I just don't know why we're going back over it. Yeah. It's like a caterpillar moving, I think. But yeah,
like a little inchworm, like going like
yeah, like a little inchworm. This is a good thing, but I want to know your take on it in book 2. I thought that Lauren exhibited a lot of restraint in this book. It was probably a quarter or more through the book until I saw a cocky bastard or a pretty pay, and my dimple count for this book is only up to, I think, 5. 5 dimples, which is a 10th of what it was in Powerless. So I thought that was great.
We got cocky bastards out the wazoo, unfortunately, but the dimple count is rather low in Reckless as well.
I guess it's because they barely see each other.
It's improvement. My other compliment I have for this book is that this is front loaded and back loaded, unfortunately, but there are moments where Peyton actually gets to use her like observational powers. Often as a precursor to combat. For example, I think the first time she uses them in Reckless is when she notices that somebody who is carrying her, she's been captured at this point, not by Kai, but it doesn't matter. She's pretending to be passed out, so she can't see. And she's been carried by a guy, and she's able to detect that he is walking with a limp, and she can figure out which leg is the weaker one based on that. And then she immediately uses that to take him down. And I was like, great. Believable use of our character's established abilities, fun, leads into a combat moment, and then some other similar stuff happens towards the end. But in the middle, very little of it, unfortunately.
I actually really like that. That's fun. That's like I don't know, you could easily go from the psych thing to like, you know, she's Sun Tzu, the Chinese Machiavelli. She uses her like intuition for combat purposes. That's fun. I wish she did anything like that. She only uses it in book 3 to like heckle people effectively.
And then conclude that a guy can mind control people without evidence and maybe wrong about it.
Right. Again, maybe wrong.
I thought that the limping thing in particular was way better than even what we get in book 1 because I didn't buy the wedding ring thing. I thought that was dumb. I would say I still hold to this, what I said back then, where it's like I really hate it when a character's ability is they can conclude things that are like pretty vast leaps of logic, and then the narrative always confirms that they're correct. I just think that that's boring because what inevitably happens is that character becomes a way for the novel to just confirm information that it otherwise wouldn't be able to do. Like Sherlock is the biggest example of this, and I mean H Bomber Guy's video like explained that in gory detail. But like Armin in Attack on Titan is an example of that, a much less extreme example. But like it always happens that way. So I liked it in this where it's like, okay, I can follow that. It makes sense. And it doesn't like control the entire arc of the novel. Like she's not able to make such vast leaps in logic that she can like conclude everybody's thoughts way in advance.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse for that. It just didn't come up that much in my book, honestly. And they lampshaded that with like I haven't needed my deductive reasoning in a while, I guess. Whoa.
It's so lame because like why didn't she use it when she's like negotiating with the queen? Why wasn't she like, the queen is wearing a flower brooch, but it's not a rose, it's a lily. So we should have brought lilies instead. I'm gonna hide the roses and go find lilies later and then bring her lilies to convince her that like
it does not.
It's literally that easy. I'm doing this off the dome.
Right.
Come on.
And speaking of rings, though, with the whole ring, marriage ring thing, there is an interesting dichotomy. I wish there was more of it, but it was touched on, so it's worth a writing point. The conflation or the comparison of the marriage ring that Peyton has to Kitt and the enforcer ring that Kai wears. They are both rings. They both represent a forced duty. I like it. If you're going to be poetic and annoying about things, you better be poetic and annoying about things that are actually poetic. And I think that's a really neat like comparison to make. They both do represent being trapped in different things.
That sounds really good. How does Kai get the ring back? Because he gives it to Kitt at the beginning of Reckless, which I know I didn't mention. But he's like, I'm going to give this to you and you can give it back to me when you trust me again or something like that.
Oh, I didn't realize that was such a poignant moment. He just hands it back.
No way.
I'm sure he said something like, I know I can trust you now, brother. But like, I didn't pick up that was like that important of a line. But like, Kai didn't do anything or accomplish.
They have this like reasonably honest, raw moment where Kai is like, I know you don't think that I'm actually going to come back. You think I'm going to run away with Peyton. I'm going to give you my enforcer ring, and you can give it back to me when I've earned your trust back, whenever that is.
Well, it must just be when he brings Peyton back and doesn't run off with her. I thought that makes sense to me.
But that definitely confirms the plot hole about like who should know what about whose feelings. Whatever.
Yeah, it's terrible. How much honey was referenced, especially in the beginning and end of your book?
Definitely whenever the sticky buns come up. So 3 times maybe.
Okay.
One of those is at the beginning. Yeah, one of them.
Well, you know how much I like me a good chiastic structure, and I would be remiss not to mention the use of honey versus blood. It's very stupid and powerless, but the Band-Aid's torn off, so in book 3, she's literally covered in blood, and she's like trying to like cope. She's like, it's just honey, it's just honey, and I think that's cool. And then at the very end, she's with her husband and her daughter named Kitt, and she's like, our life is sweet now, just like honey. And that's like the closing little thing, and it's, I don't know, I have a soft spot for it because we're leaving out on the same note that we started this adventure on, and it's very nice.
Hey, at the very least, it exhibits some knowledge of the craft of storytelling, even if it is like literally something you could Google.
Right.
You got to take what you can get.
Yeah. No, you really do. Just you can't be a chooser. No, overall, I really think that the series developed its own identity by book 3. I can't even describe the identity other than low fantasy YA, but it's not just X meets Y by the end. It's a lot of things meet a lot of things. I felt like I was coming back to a world that has been developing and is being lived in, and that is and I'm gonna hold my tongue about which books in particular I think this is not exhibited in, but we've read books, we've read series that I don't feel like I'm returning to the same world, and it was almost kind of sad to see it go when the end came around. It's a testament to how much she's developed this world and her craft over these 3 books. So, good job.
I do owe her a writing point on that front as well. The writing is noticeably better in Reckless than it was in Powerless. It is still like juvenile, like it's still bad, but it is noticeably better. So if we were giving out, most improved achievements, like it's the end of 3rd grade, I would give it to her.
If she took out the alliterations, I would love the prose. I don't have a single problem with the prose.
I do. It's so boring.
You do? Okay, well, I don't know. It may not be as exciting, but it's not dry. I don't know. I don't want to say poetic because it's not technically poetic, and you're going to get on me about it. But it's
literally not poetic in any way. It does not use associative logic ever, except for the ring
it uses a
example that you just
thesaurus.
mentioned.
It uses a thesaurus. How's that? A thesaurus.
Poetry is when big word.
Basically, that's all I know.
Okay, cool. I can understand that perspective. There are times when cynically I'm reading like Sylvia Plath, and I think that
you're just like Sylvia Plath, Lauren Roberts.
This is just like Sylvia. Well, okay, wait, hold on a second, because we have some interesting family dynamics to discuss. Perhaps there's something to this.
That's all I got.
That's all I got too. I have nothing else good to say about this book. And I don't feel like I usually feel bad. I've been on an arc about the good section because initially it was really hard for me, and then I felt like I was making an intentional effort to be better about it, and I felt like I was getting better at it, and I felt like our good sections have gotten longer, not just in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality as well. But then this book, I have like, I feel like I have dropped right back down into like, I was really struggling to find anything good about this, but this time without any of the regret. Like, this book just sucks, and I don't feel like I owe it any more than that.
That's good.
If I had read yours, I might feel different, because yours sounds interesting.
I had a great time. I loved that book. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads.
I saw. I was like, what? What happened? I push through the curtain of leaves and step beneath the tree I visit as often as life will allow it, but always on this day with a sticky bun in hand. I run my fingers along the rough bark of the trunk, following its familiar grooves. It's not long before I take my familiar seat beneath the towering tree, draping an arm over my propped knee. Balancing the plate atop a particularly large root, I pull a small matchbox from my pocket. I couldn't find a candle this year. Sorry. I strike the match, staring at the small flame now sputtering on the stick. So this will have to do. I push the match into the center of the sticky bun, smiling slightly at the pathetic sight. I take a moment to watch it burn, watch it paint the massive tree in a flickering glow. Then I look down beside me, running a hand over the soft grass there. Happy birthday, eh? I blow out the makeshift candle, letting darkness swallow us whole.
Girl, move on. Oh my God.
No, Andrew. This is Kai's perspective.
This is Kai's perspective? Oh,
Yeah.
wrong A, sorry.
That's right, Andrew. You were right about the dead sister.
But
You were right about how he knows how to braid her hair back in our original Powerless episode.
so I was right this whole time. I was kind of hoping it would be like an ex-girlfriend and have it be like super awkward, like it was Blair or something. But a dead sister's okay
So wait,
too.
does your confusion mean that the dead sister doesn't come up in the third book at all?
No, she does. I lost track of what you were saying, and I heard "Happy Birthday A" over a gravesite, and I was just like, oh shit, not again.
Adina?
Yeah.
All right, Andrew. I'm sure that critiques abound, so we might as well start somewhere. What have you got for us?
Well, I want to get this one out of the way. Like I said, I thought I was being really annoying in Powerless for a lot of different reasons, but one of the big ones was the alliterations thing. I still hate them just as much as I always have. I still think they're stupid, but this is the only thing I'm going to say about alliterations, and then I'm done with it. I've realized since hearing back from the comment sections that, this is pretty idiosyncratic to English and even American literature to be this bothered by it or to have it be this much of a sore thumb. But there's dialogue that has alliterations now that I don't remember having. I'd be okay if it were just the narration, but something about the characters using it too did not like.
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing for sure.
I have found a passage that illustrates why I think alliteration is not a good device for this project. They're in Isram, right. They're walking through the streets, and I quote, "cocooned within a constricting circle of guards." Cocooned is a terrible word here because they're not being protected. They're not metamorphosizing or whatever the word is. They're definitely being constricted, but
there's nothing soft about it or silky.
Right. So I'm thinking what happened is Lauren opened up a thesaurus and found like a word implying contained that started with C and slapped it there without any thought given to the connotation of the word. And that's what I have a problem with more than just hating it sonically. That's what I don't like is when it forces you to use words that are completely inappropriate for the situation.
I had something to say about alliteration, but you illustrated it better than what I had. I think you're absolutely right.
Last thing. And this is a bad thing because it could have been a good thing, if that makes sense, related to alliterations. I
have a lot of those. I made an entire section of those.
Really?
Yes.
UJ mentioned that the big thing that you didn't like about the alliteration is that the book doesn't have any interest otherwise in the sound of language or the alphabet itself or whatever. There's no other like metatextual reason to be interested in alliterations. But there's this half poignant moment where Kai and Peyton are like, wow, we both call the most important dead person in our lives A. Which is pretty neat and could have justified this more playful syntax where these things are more relevant. But that's the only time it ever comes up that they both have A's of their own. And I guess there's the 3 B's, but
Adina, Ava, and wait, isn't her dad's name Adam?
Yeah, Adina, Ava, and Adam. Everyone who's dead has an A name.
The girl who Kai lets go that he meets again in Door is named Abigail.
You're crazy. You're crazy. All the dead people or all the suffering people. Anyways, that's all I have to say about the alphabet.
What is going on with that?
I don't know.
There's no explanation. It's just so... All right. I kind of, sort of, I guess, already said what I wanted to say about this, but I said I would do a small one. So the fact that they go to the field and it's called the field, me when I'm in the field and it's a field, and like Peyton is like, oh wow, the field, I've heard stories, I've heard tell of this field, what's so special about the field? And Kai's like, oh, you'll love the field, just wait. Guys be like, I know a place and it's the field. But the world just has no aesthetic identity, and I've been thinking that like long before the field came up. But like we go to a graveyard road, which is potentially really interesting, and the descriptions of the graves that we get are like, they are crumbling graves and there are a lot of them and they are gray and the dirt is mounded on top. And like Door is like it is a town and it is in the sand.
Yep.
And the people wear flowy clothing to keep them cool, and Ilia is a town. This world should be, by all rights, in the midst of like a cultural upheaval as a result of the powers that like one of the 4 major nations just spontaneously gained because the virus broke containment. And there should be, even if for some reason it literally was like Playmobil Town before, like the fact that a bunch of random nobodies like have powers. The powers didn't like give themselves only to the elite that would have been invested in protecting the established like status quo. The elites that we know now are just people that were selected by genetic chance, right? So like a bunch of people now have powers. They should, by rights, like be completely changing society. And you would think that would mean that like new kinds of art, new kinds of architecture, new kinds of inventions are all popping up. Like this world should look like something. And the nations that are being left behind in all that innovation should also look like something. Like they should have a distinct identity. And I would think it would be one that's like sort of entropic, but we don't get anything. This world, like, it's just nothing. It's like you were saying, I'm probably going to say this like 10 more times before this episode's over, but like she could have done anything and she did nothing instead. And that is so baffling to me because, and this is something I said in the Powerless episode, but this is the fun part of world building, right? Like I know that there are boring parts of world building and that like what is considered boring to some people is considered fun to others. Like some people love coming up with like all the political minutia or whatever. I never liked that. But basically everybody likes coming up with like powers and how those powers interact with like cool parts of society, like how it looks and like what people wear and shit like that. Like the kind of like surface level easy stuff. The fact that she didn't do it, I don't know what that is meant to suggest. Is it a time crunch? Is it laziness? Is it indifference? Is it incuriosity? Like it's so baffling to me because why not? Like why not do the fun stuff at the very least?
Because we see time and time again that Lauren is not practiced as a writer. I like the thing with the note, getting it in chapter 3 and not having any time to react to it. The thing about Blair being killed and no one doing anything about it as was promised several times. The thing about the modular repetition flowchart vibe of over half of the second book. I can't describe this. This has happened to me, so I'm really frustrated about not being able to describe this, but she probably wants to do the fun world building stuff, but she's stuck over here with establishing Payton and Kai, and she, for whatever reason, writer's block or whatever, doesn't have the wherewithal to do the world building stuff and to establish these fun things, because that would cut into time that she needs. You can argue it either way. She may need it to practice, characterization and world building on a micro sense, or she might just be eschewing that so she can go write scenes where they make out and flirt with each other. Either way you want to look at it, she's wanting to do something that isn't that right now.
But I mean, so you're the fiction writer. I'm gonna defer to you on this, but like, when you start writing a fantasy story, do you not do some pre-writing that involves some level of world building that establishes, like at the very least, the way that whatever magic you have sets that world apart from ours, other than the fact of its existence?
I do. SBU Andrew does. Brando Sando does. George R.R. Martin doesn't. Patrick Rothfuss doesn't. It's a spectrum. So I don't know. It sounds mean, but I'm saying this because I've been there before. I think it's just inexperience, and it makes you put your eggs in weird baskets that they don't need to necessarily be in.
Okay, yeah. I guess it could really be that simple. That makes sense to me.
I'm really glad you brought this point up, though, about like the fact that the world should be in social upheaval, because I have to say this. I know I'm going to sound like a shit lib, but I have to say this. I hate how this series co-opts the language of systemic, usually racial oppression for a silly story about magic powers. Like, it pisses me off so much. Like, they use the word segregation. they use the word passing, like racially passing, or like passing as an elite, or the term systemic oppression itself. I think it can be done tastefully in fantasy. That's the whole point of fantasy, is you're supposed to be able to abstract these social issues and use that to your advantage to, illustrate whatever political beliefs you might have. But it just does not work here. And I think it is exactly what you're talking about, where the elites of today are randomly assigned and randomly chosen. There's no, the elite of today might have been the slummer of yesterday. And
totally,
there's no thought given to that, or at least like a character. Or Blair, what if Blair was a slum rat and she got power, or her family got powers, and then she was catapulted into opulence, and she's like the anti-Payton or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, literally. Like, there should be people living in Dor who were the nobility pre-plagues, like the Ilian nobility pre-plagues. Like, they didn't get powers, and now they live in poverty in Dor. Or, hell, maybe they don't live in poverty in Dor. Maybe they've taken over Dor because they took all their money with them.
Right.
And Dor was like a poor nation in the desert, and now, or city-state, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, Dor is run by these, like, Ilian expats who, like, are like oppressing the actual local people, like
building Starbucks everywhere.
If you want to do this, like, I mean, it is undeniably, intentionally or not, an analog for some kind of systemic oppression. Like, if you're gonna do it, like, do it. Like, actually do it. Don't, like you said, don't just co-opt the language for this, like, haha, funny story. Like, it's silly.
Yeah, and again, I'm really frustrated with myself because I'm struggling to articulate, like, exactly why it pisses me off in this book in particular. But I don't know, I read the word segregation and I was like, how dare you, Lauren? Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like literally thoughtlessness in the face of, like, okay, I've said this about a million books, especially the Lightlark series, but, like, as a writer, language is your main tool. Like, you have other tools, like rhetorical devices, that are all constructed out of language, but, like, the word and its associations, that is your fundamental tool. Right. If you are not interested in how it works and what it means, not just to you personally, but, like, within the context of the society and time period in which you live, why are you writing? I'm not saying stop writing. I'm not saying you don't deserve to be a writer, but why are you writing if you don't care about the thing that you are doing? It doesn't make sense. It defies all reason. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Like, as a white American, you can't just drop the word segregation into your fantasy book and not expect it to read in a weird way. I'm not saying you can't do it. You can. You have the power to do so. This book proves that. You can do it, and you can make $1 billion off of it. But why are you doing it? What is your reason? And again, I'm not asking why as, like, a secret shitlib way of, like, shutting you down or owning you. I am asking why you want to do it. Like, I'm asking you, hypothetical listener, hypothetical Lauren Roberts, to ask yourself why. What is your reason?
Yeah, the missing why, I think, is the biggest thing, and it goes back to the lack of maturity or experience or whatever with writing in general. Before you brought up that point, I think what you said is more correct, but my theory was that, and I don't think we made this obvious enough, but, like, the plague is just a sham, ordinaries are just the byproduct of this conspiracy to create an elite society. King Daddy just has a personal vendetta. And it's kind of like the other side of the coin established by Not My Home, where once you make these systems, once you make these systems personal, and once you give a face and name to these complex societal things that create oppression, you are creating a victim, basically, like, or you're cheapening, like, the actual experience of it. And for all of this just to be King Daddy's eugenics experiment further undermines it beyond just it being silly in the first place.
It's ridiculous to ask us to sympathize with him.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. I don't really have more to say about it. Like, I'm not going to do it. He's got to go. Like, there's no way around it.
And we can't draw a line from that to systemic oppression. We just can't. Racism in the real world doesn't exist because one guy is really mad at a minority group
Right.
and creates his whole identity around it. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, there's no president of racism. Sorry
no
to bring back like
president
the
of racism.
2017 memes, but like there's not. Like
Right. So I don't know. That whole part, that whole aspect of it just always makes me mad somehow.
it's maddening. It's so maddening. And I think that the low effort that was put into the thought of this book on like a thematic level, at least, or the series, I guess I should say, since we're talking about all of it sort of as a unit, is also reflected in like the fan base. And this is not strictly the book's fault, but it is conspicuous to me the amount of AI art that exists of this series.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the wiki, most of the characters don't have portraits, but the ones that do are all AI generated. It straight up tells you that. If you Google the series and like scroll on TikTok or even just Google images, you'll find tons more AI generated images and videos about this series. And maybe they're all fake, like who knows? It's impossible to say. I guess I'm not going to waste my time investigating them individually, but either they're fake and there's no fans of this book and there's like fake hype designed to gaslight you into buying it, or the fans of this book are a bunch of people who care about it on like such a superficial level that the only like creative way they interact with it is by telling a computer to be creative for them.
Yeah.
And that is kind of damning in its own way. Sorry, Lauren. Again, I know that's not your fault, unless you are generating them all yourself as a scheme. Unless you're the conspirator, you're the one who controls all the healers. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it feels like commentary, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. That's way too harrowing for me to even touch on. It just makes me so sad because, like, what we could also be seeing is just an evolution of fandom culture where, you know, if you really like something, you don't jump on DeviantArt and draw a bunch of them in MS Paint with giant belly buttons getting tickled. You talk to a computer. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. That's not how I understand fandom, and I think things are just changing around.
Where is my Kittflation? Where is it?
Literally, if you've ever done anything for this channel, draw Kittflation art. I beg you, in the bowels of the
Please,
Godstars.
like I don't want our fans to draw Kittflation. I want a real fan who has some particular set of events happening in their brain to organically create Kittflation for me. Like, that's how I know it's real. That's how I know that, like, people care about this.
Right. So that's our charge to you. I don't know. Yeah, no, the artifice just kind of envelops this whole thing. And maybe that's why you and I disagree so much about the prose, even like at the best of times, the prose. Because I could get into it, but I'm way better at turning off my brain when it comes to those micro elements. But even I, in my ignorance, noticed a few times where I swear Lauren was just throwing phrases at the wall to see what sticks. There's a couple things I want you guys to know that Lauren Roberts wrote. Adina is the most alive person I know. After she had been dead, with no sense of the irony, the phrase unbelievably unblemished. It's not, you know, after like an explosion or anything where it would be unbelievable to be unblemished. It's just assuming that everything is naturally blemished and it's unbelievable to be otherwise. I don't know. And my favorite, now they did the same, only this time it was different. I don't even know what that was in reference to. I just thought that was really funny. Some of these just aren't phrases that you should use. I'm sorry.
I should have written down some of the really bad ones in mine too, because there were plenty, but I got so tired.
Yeah, no, it's kind of exhausting, but I think of it as like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. It feels very haphazard and slapdash and random.
I kind of thought we were going to be talking more about the romance in this section, and maybe we will. Do you have more to say about it? Because I'm going to like kind of burn right past it here in a second, unless you want to like linger.
I have nothing to say about the romance. It's fine. I get it. They're all attractive people. And it was all rug pulled out from under me when we learned that Kitt secretly hated Peyton from the get-go and wanted to fucking murder her. But okay, you do your thing.
I don't know. I was just going to say that like both Pei and Kai go through this like same cycle kind of in parallel throughout Reckless, where they're both like, oh, I'm so insane, like I've never loved somebody like this before, and like literally these chapters will be back to back, so like she'll say it and then he'll say it and then she'll say it and then he'll say it, so like they're like, oh, I'm so insane, and then it's like, oh, I love him so much we can't be together, and then he's like, oh, I love her so much we can't be together, and then they're like, we'll just pretend we can be together, we'll just pretend we can't be together. And the ridiculousness of like the total like syncing up of that aside, every single beat of this is delivered in such hyperbolic language that it's really, really hard to take seriously. Yeah. Like, it feels like actual children feeling this way about each other, or like whatever. Like, it literally feels like a first crush.
Sure.
And it really undermines like the feeling that this is like a novel that like adults would read, because it doesn't display any self-awareness of the fact that it feels that childish. Like, it feels like the novel itself doesn't know anything else. It would change everything. It would change everything if it winked at me once. If it was just like, these kids are a little silly, aren't they? It would recontextualize all 3 books in a blink. But it doesn't do that.
It does
Instead, it's like, you're supposed to believe that they actually feel this way, and will always feel this way, that their love is truly this powerful and this destined. At one point, they call their love infinite, and it's not just in like a passing line, it's in like a line that's on its own, like it's been separated from other paragraphs, Alex Astor style. Payton's like, it's infinite though, and it's like,
just like in Perks of Being
but like, you don't know what it is because you guys dated for like 3 days before all of this happened, and now you've been trying to kill each other in the desert, and then you're gonna go home and marry your boyfriend's brother, who is actually like, you don't know what love is. It's not your fault. Like, you're a child, but like the novel seems to think that you do, and it's like, no, no, this is terrible.
That would have been such a good opportunity to justify Queen Mommy II still being alive, is for her to come in every now and then, or like have Kai come up to her like he did a couple times in Fearless, and have her just be like, hey, you're kind of being a child about this. You're really gonna regret being this dramatic when you're older.
Like, you're a politician on some level. You're endangering the kingdom. You're a political actor. Like, you can't be running around a foreign nation like Dor with a crush on this girl who you've been ordered by the king to kill. Like, we're not on good terms with Dor right now.
Yeah, and the fact that everyone knows about the crush and doesn't do anything about it, and it never has repercussions, also kind of speaks to just the schoolyard nature of this whole thing, both like on a world building setting and like also as a romance. It's just like, none of this can be taken seriously because no one else is taking it seriously.
I just need to know that this is not taking itself seriously.
Yeah.
If it knows that it's all a joke, everything I'm saying is immediately invalidated.
Sure.
I mean, at this point, it would take more than Lauren Roberts coming out and like saying that verbally, because like, I don't think I would believe her. It would need to be in the text somewhere. Like, she would need to demonstrate to me as a writer that she's capable of doing that.
Right.
Because otherwise I think that she means it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are always doing this like back and forth parallel emotional beats thing contributes to the problem that I had in Powerless as well, which is that both of their internal worlds are completely barren. Like, as empty as the center of the landmass of Ilia. They're always thinking about the exact same things at the exact same time.
Yep.
And if they're not thinking about how much they feel about each other, they're thinking about like their respective dead person that they've been assigned by literal actual God who lives in literal actual heaven, I guess. Yeah. It's always like, oh, my dad / Adina, oh, Ava, back and forth. Like, they don't talk about anything else. They don't think about anything else. Nothing else is going on. It is caught on a loop. It's like I mean, it's a cliche, but it's like a broken record. Like, it literally feels like every time it could conceivably go somewhere else, it cuts back to where we began.
That's absolutely still the case in Fearless. I think that's just a Powerless trilogy issue. The barren personal world is a huge part of it, because like, I don't know, like, we can keep it focused on the romance, but like, what do Payton and Kai even like about each other? Like, what interests do they share? Do they like the same music? Right. Do they love the same art? I know they like heavy petting on a gravestone, so that's cool.
They like negging.
That's nice. So
it literally is like a first crush. Like, I feel like the attraction is purely physical and they just don't know it.
Right. And again, if Queen Mommy II were just like, your attraction is purely physical and you'll find that out one day, that's all I could have wanted.
I want mommy.
I
want to be held. I want to be comforted.
No. I want to talk about mommy for a little bit longer, and also daddy, because
Yeah. Oh man, my two favorites in one package. Call me Cleo the way I'm into this.
Shut up. It's like I hate you. So I've already run over it, but like Queen Mommy the Second just being handed off by a character that we don't know to King Daddy completely decimates any promise of her character. Like maybe it doesn't decimate, like something could have been done with it, but there's no like, she doesn't look even particularly sullen. She's just like handed off as an item in this cutscene from King Daddy's point of view. And we
Do you want to do something crazy?
What?
She acknowledges that in Reckless. She actually
Really?
acknowledges it in the scene where Kitt visits her on her hospital bed.
No kidding.
She's like, yeah. She's like, he didn't love me at first. Like, we actually hated each other and our relationship sucked. But then, like, somehow over the course of time, it got better. And then ours was a love like no other. And I miss him. And now that he's not here, I can't imagine breathing the air of a world where he's not also breathing. And I want to die.
God. Yeah. So
she's like coping.
Yeah,
it's horrific.
That's really scary, actually. It sounds like she just got gaslit because he sucks. So that's another thing. Like, if they learn to love each other, what does that say about her? Everything I said about Powerless still applies, and now triply so that we're at the end of this trilogy. I also don't like anything done in regards to Payton's patrimony. Callum is a stupid twist to be her father. I think it's dumb. And I could have lived with, Adam Gray not secretly being alive, like I was hoping that would happen in Powerless. But having him just not be her father, dying off screen, everything we thought happened to him happened. And that's now your dad is a secret mind control scary man. That's the least interesting option of anything that could have happened. So don't like anything related to mommy or daddy this time around.
Yeah, it's like the most boring possible permutation of that reality.
Yeah.
Because what does Callum being her dad add? Nothing. It's just a twist for the sake of it being unexpected.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. It adds shock value. I don't know. It's so dumb.
Shortcut to the feeling of surprise.
Right.
Which you would think, well, no, you wouldn't think. I would wish that when a writer is doing that, when they're like, I would like to evoke a feeling of surprise in this moment, that they would then think, why? And why do I want to do it in this way? What is my goal here? What am I trying to accomplish? But no, It's just, that's nice, good feeling. I like surprise. It sells or whatever. So
sure.
There it is.
Hooray.
You mentioned in our Powerless episode that there were some Freudian events occurring. Do you remember off the top of your head what you were talking about? Could you refresh the class on what it was you had to say?
So there were two big small details that made me think that. So Payton, in her original chapter where she meets Kai, wasn't going to help him, but then sees Kai in trouble, and it reminds her of her father when he was killed by Imperials or whatever. And that's what makes her want to help him, is the conflation of Kai with her father. The second one was that Kai only had a smile for Payton and Queen Mommy the Second. So it's the other side of the coin, conflating Payton with his mother. So something was going on there, and it only got worse in book 3. So I'm sure you have something crazy to drop on me.
I do. So there are, let's see, is this 2 or 3? How do I want to count this? I think it's 2, but one of them is like a double whammy. So the first instance of this is when Kai and Payton are in the Sanctuary of Souls. They're almost back to Ilya, so they're in the middle of this big graveyard. They light a fire one night, and they're just kind of hanging out. They're chatting or whatever, flirting probably, and fighting.
For sure.
And this is when Kai talks about Ava. He gives Ava's backstory to Payton, this first time hearing it. And as they're having this like romantic, kissy, dancey, firelighty kind of date, he is like, your spirit is familiar. You remind me of what could have been. In another life, I think Ava would have grown up to be like you.
Oh my God.
And then turn the page, what do we see? She has Kai. She can't dance, right? Because when she was a kid, her dad never taught her how to dance. Instead, he would hold her hands and let her stand on his feet so that she could just sort of like be puppeteered by him, and that was like they're dancing together. She has Kai do that for her. She has him dance her like her father did when she was a child. Ooh. And then Peyton says, I used to do this with my father. That's why I never learned to dance properly, because he always did it for me. And then Kai says, then we'll dance until you're dreaming of him. And he literally dances her to sleep like he is her dad and she's his child.
Holy shit.
And then, this is the second one. This is a separate one. This is the Kitt scene with Queen Mommy, dying Queen Mommy. And at the end of the visit, this is from his perspective.
Yeah.
My eyes crash into hers. Reaching up a shaky hand, she brushes a strand of hair from my forehead. You're exactly what he looked like when I fell in love with him. Really? I breathe. Really? She laughs. And then, a little bit down the page, she says, Kitt, visit me again? You look so much like him.
Oh!
End of scene.
That's crazy. Lauren? Talk about a lateral daddy move, am I right?
Well, yeah. Lauren, you're being libidinal again.
I mean, I know we all grew up with the Mortal Instruments, but this is crazy. This is really crazy. I don't know what to do with this. I'm like kind of grossed out.
I'm content to do nothing with it but point out that it's there. I was so tickled that it came back. I thought I was imagining it the first time, even though it was a 1-2 punch. But then the saying goodbye to dying Queen Mommy scene happened. I was like, we have established a pattern. This is 3 times at least. But then I gotta make note.
But narratively, what's it called? But metaphorically, it does reach this weird, gross zenith when Kai and Peyton have sex 6 feet departed from Ava.
Yeah. And then they name their kid after Kai's brother.
I mean, it's just everything that we've already said. There's no intentionality. I don't think Lauren wanted us to figure this out about her sexuality. And I really think she should do something about this.
What was it you said on the last episode? Like, you want to make sure that you're not assuming that everybody feels the same way about something that's actually deeply strange about you.
You mean not everyone wants to dance with their boyfriend like your dad? Oh, God.
The weird thing about it to me is not that it happens, because like, this is a documented part of human psychology. Like, I'm not like kink shaming or something here. The thing that makes it weird is that it's unexplored and unacknowledged.
Right.
The weird and uncomfortable thing is that Lauren, like you said, doesn't seem to realize that it's happening.
No,
if Lauren made an intentional choice to include this in order to, I mean, just doing it to expose some part of her psyche would be weird as well. But if she was doing it to like explore something that she has personally experienced and was trying to give honest and vulnerable voice to some part of herself, that would be valuable. That would be interesting.
Right.
Might still be icky, but it would at least be literature. But this is just like, hey guys, so here's what I'm into.
Completely normal story. No, she doesn't say that. She's like, here's my completely normal fantasy romance. There's nothing weird about it at all. You know, just got a little bit of Hunger Games.
I just made it all up. None of it's real.
Right.
It has nothing to do with me.
Holy shit. And it's like, so the Mortal Instrument squicks me out, and Cassandra Clare is kind of a piece of shit. But that aspect, the weird Freudian aspect, was written intentionally, dealt with in the prose, and you can tell that Cassandra Clare was really into it. But, you know, it was also like written for horror, the shock aspect of it. And that's not here at all. The closest we get is where they realize that Peyton and Kitt are half siblings, and she's just like, oh, okay. And then they move on with that.
It's just so weird. It's just so weird. It's like, haha, you remind me of my dead relative. You are so sexy. Please continue reminding me of my dead relative. Because they're all dead. Like every single one of them that they get compared to. Which, I mean,
thank God
if they were alive,
are.
it might even be weirder.
Yeah, I was about to say, because if Ava was around and Kai was like, Peyton, you're just like my sister, and she was
Hey, girl.
alive, different ballgame. At least you can cite like trauma or grief when she's dead. Just because I don't want to end the section on incest, I can confirm beyond a shadow of the doubt that despite making a big deal about it in one paragraph in Powerless, Peyton does use the term plagues colloquially. Like, what the plagues, oh my plagues, whatever. I don't have a problem with her doing it. I don't think this has any necessarily like implications on her character, but it just means that she can't be high and mighty about it. And there's another moment in Fearless where they're like, oh, don't say plagues in front of Peyton. You know, she doesn't like that. And I'm just like, in her narration, I confirmed that she said, oh, plagues or whatever.
Yeah, it happens in Reckless too. I don't know what to do with it. It's like, do you not realize it, Lauren?
Right.
Like, how do you not notice that?
Another instance of, not paying attention to words and saying things and what it means to say things with words. Kai does not understand the extent of his father's indifference toward him, or why he suffers so heavily at the hand of his king. Peyton does not understand the extent of her birth and how it is connected to the king's loathing of her. Kitt does not understand the extent of his father's hatred towards ordinaries, but he does not need to. In time, they will come to see what was hidden from them, every lie brought to light, every secret unraveled. But the king, dear Edric, will never know the truth behind that rose on Iris's jewelry box. Iris is Queen Mommy the First. Well, Jay, we're on a little bit of a time crunch here, because I don't think you knew this, but if we can't fix Lauren Roberts by the end of this club session, the school psychologist is going to take her away and throw her in the infirmary, where she will bleed out on an operating table, presumably, because that's what happens when you undergo intense stress and grief. So we need to save her before she can reach this fate by offering actionable suggestions for these books and for the series that are true to her mission, while still helping this not be terrible and Freudian and scary.
I would love nothing less than to save her from the scalpel happy hands of Doctors Simon and Schuster. So, let me kick us off with this. This is like a Reckless specific suggestion. Kai has a personal entourage that he takes with him initially out into the desert. They all get killed by Lenny a few chapters later. Imagine getting killed by someone named Lenny.
Right.
That's a big L to BH. But yeah, this entourage is a bunch of nameless mooks, except for one that Kai is like, this guy's name is Matthew. I kind of respect him. The rest of them I hate. They know I hate them. And I'm going to be mean to them for no reason, I guess, just to demonstrate that I'm edgy.
Right.
The problems with that are obvious. What I found more interesting is that there's no thought given to the makeup of this entourage. Kai is the enforcer. He's the only enforcer that we know about. Like, we know that allegedly there have been past ones, but he's the only one we know about. So there must be a precedent for setting up these personal entourages with powered people who have a specific kit, like in their totality, so that the enforcer can deal with whatever situation.
Right.
That should be doubly, if not triply true for Kai's specific situation, because he can borrow other people's powers. So you would think that there would be some thought put into who is in this little troop. For example, maybe a Hydro, since there's going to be desert involved. Maybe a Bloom, since we need food to eat no matter where we're going.
Yep.
Maybe somebody that can shapeshift so that Kai can navigate all manner of terrain, like some manner of Dungeons and Dragons druid. And so on and so on. Maybe a sight to constantly be able to project what's happening back to the kingdom, so that Kitt, who allegedly is worried about being able to trust Kai to complete his mission, can monitor Kai.
Yeah.
Maybe this sight is a person that Kai doesn't like. So now Kai hates that he's being monitored by this mook that his brother hired, increasing the tension and the distrust between them, like you might have in some kind of novel. I just think that, like, this is such an opportunity for not just intrigue in the moment, but also a little bit of world building, because Kai can be like, we've been experimenting with the perfect setup for an enforcer party for 30 years now, and this is what our Ilian battle tactics have yielded for us. We have this person, this person, this person, and this person. We have them on retainer, ready to go for whatever mission I have. And that would make him look cool, too, because it would make him look like a badass strategizer. And even if he doesn't care about these guys, that can even add to it, because they're just pawns to him. That is all within what Lauren has explicitly set out to do.
Yeah, I don't even think that's idiosyncratic to your book, because when Kitt gets stabbed in the chest, Kai is like, I need a healer, where's a healer? And he like extends himself magically trying to look for a healer, but there's no healer in the tower that they're in, which I realize that there's probably an explanation, because it's like the wedding time, so probably people are in different places, so like whatever, in the moment I'm sure there's an explanation. But why doesn't Kai walk around with like an entourage nigh constantly of just people whose powers he can either use or have them use, so that, you know, he's not caught in this situation, especially a healer, because if he's supposed to defend the queen and the king, then like that's like number one thing I'd want around personally. So it's just
literally. And number two on my list would probably be Flash, because like, although in the world of superheroes, running fast is kind of boring, like utility wise, in a world of people who have all kinds of like pretty boring powers, like being able to run extremely fast, really useful, I would think.
Yeah.
Could catch arrows in midair. If you notice something is poisoned, you could grab it out of the king's hand before he eats it. You could round up several enemies that have surrounded the king, you know, before they can even lower a sword. Like, I don't know, healer, Flash, that's a good start.
Yeah. I mean, he could just have like a little squad with him, and we can learn things about him, and they could be minor characters who could make up a B story or even a C story every now and then. It doesn't matter. He can still be badass about it, but it's just so lame to me.
He can still hate them,
Yeah.
Some of them can even die by Lenny's hand.
Yeah, I forgot about that. There's like no bad blood between Kai and Lenny after all that crazy stuff happens. Lenny goes right back to guarding in the castle like nothing happened.
This is a man that can be trusted on the castle staff, a guy that previously killed a bunch of other castle staff.
Well, did Kai know that Lenny was a person? Does Kai know Lenny by name?
Yes, Kai was borrowing Lenny's hyper power to listen in on their plan to bring Kai himself back to Ilya and like sell him to Kitt.
Okay, I didn't realize if like maybe there was some dramatic irony there where
no.
Never mind.
They were a wall apart.
This is stupid. I debated not saying anything about this, but I have to. This is also kind of unique to my book. I beg you, Lauren, mention something about having sent an envoy to Isram before you do the second trial, because it is insane to me that the two most important people in the nation of Ilya are put on a rickety-ass boat and sailed over the dangerous-ass sea without any, like, message sent to Isram to be like, hey, we're coming, or hey, I have a business proposition for you, expect the queen and the enforcer to come soon. It could add some mystery to it, like, oh, we sent an envoy months ago, but they've never returned. Ooh. And they could either be dead or in the city. I don't care, but like, it doesn't make any sense. And this is a nitpicky, like,
no.
Actually, this is not realistic, but like, why would you put these two people on a boat and not even know if you will be shot down by Isram before you even reach the port? It's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and like, the main political tension in this world is that Ilya, despite being weak and poor, has superheroes and nobody else does. So you'd think there would be some political maneuvering in like, okay, we could probably teleport somebody to Isram, but that might be poorly received because they don't like magic.
Sure.
Or we could send like an envoy ahead of time, like a herald or something, and have them be alerted that we're going to send like more important people.
Right.
And the fact that they have that conversation about how to handle the situation makes the world feel more real. And like,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be its own scene or anything. It can just be like I mean, there's already a ton of meetings, like you said, so that can just be part of a meeting that already happens.
Right. And it's just, you're gonna have to think about these things as a work becomes more dealing with political court intrigue or whatever kind of like high stakes conversations. What are you going to do with it? And that's a good point though, because like if everyone hates Ilya, there's good casus belli for any other city-state to just want to shoot their ships out of the water sight unseen. Like they may not have even the cannons may have started before there was even a chance to be like, hey, this is a diplomatic mission, which is yet another reason to send a diplomat who, if they die, you don't necessarily care that much. Again, it's the thought of it, I think.
Yeah, it literally is. Everything that I have written down has to do with like, why didn't you just think about this a little bit more? Like,
right.
For example, one thing that this book I know for a fact wants to do is like randomly have twists and like raise tension. And one way that they could have done that very easily in Door is have Kai learn about mixes, not by overhearing Lenny tell Pei about it, but by having Kai reach out for power in like a moment where he's completely desperate, not even expecting to find it, right? Because he's in a city of unpowered people, but then catch a hint of power and be like, what the hell? Where did that come from?
Right.
And then be able to use it, but maybe with unintended consequences. So maybe, for example, there's somebody who, like I mentioned, has like a tiny bit of firepower that's not super well controlled. Maybe he's pinned down by somebody or other, and he reaches out for power. He's like, oh, I wasn't actually expecting to find any. And then the fire like bursts out of him and like kills this person or something he wasn't expecting to kill. And then he's like, oh my God, there is power in Door. And then we learn, okay, there's mixes.
Sure.
Does that really change anything? Not really, but it's like moment to moment more interesting.
I don't wish, but I'm surprised that mixes never came back in book 3. Like that's a complete surprise to me, which makes you wonder why they were in book 2, but I digress.
As I was reading book 2, it felt very much like she needed to explain like a world building plot hole that she had noticed. But then I was like, why do you want to explain only this plot hole? And why does it involve inventing like an allegory for like race mixing? Like,
yeah, it's just
right?
so
Like,
gross.
I don't get it. Like, if you're going to explain something, why this?
And it just makes me even more mad because like, why they have to be mixes? Why couldn't they have just been like lesser elites? Because again, with the animals thing, I forgot to mention, it's actually kind of cool. Kai senses the sea creature because it has elite powers. Like, he can't channel eel powers or whatever, but like he senses that there's like a great power rising up from the depths, and that's actually kind of scary. Marry the thing about animals having elite powers with, maybe it just carried on the wind and there's these little pockets of infection here and there that don't necessarily look like Ilya's. They may be more quirky or less powerful. Just goes to show you that like this is a worldwide pandemic, and this is affecting people in different ways across the world. And you don't have to have a weird allegory about race mixing to do that.
It's really that easy. That's the motto of this episode. It really would be that easy. I'm just so sick of like all of the like unintentionally eugenicist stuff in these books.
Yeah.
Like stop talking about which genes are superior to which other genes and like biologically inalterable facets of people that make them better than other classes of like, you don't have to do this. You're choosing to do this. Just don't do it. And get a critique group that will tell you in person so that you don't have to have a couple of dumbass podcasters yell at you to get you to realize what you've done. Yeah. Like, surely someone in Lauren Roberts' critique group would have noticed this. Had there been one.
Had there but been one. I want to go back to the point that we were making about this book feeling modular, and even those modules are comprised of smaller modules, and how characters rarely acknowledge the immediate past. And let's take this book as a series under that paradigm. And I have some reshufflings that I want very, very desperately, actually. Darth Blair in book 2. I'm 70% serious. We need to move the confrontation with Blair in a like fiery room. It doesn't have to be exactly as it was in book 3. That needs to be in book 2. And whether or not Blair is dead in the current version of the series, I think she should survive, and I think that she should be like even more evil and fucked up now. So there's like an extra layer of like Peyton now blames herself for the state that Blair is in. And the reason I think that will come together in a way that benefits the series is a little bit twofold. The big thing is, I think we need a secondary antagonist in book 2. The way you're describing it, if like you're one guy that's chasing you around, you only ever want to flirt with, it would be nice to have like, I don't know, Blair come in as like a Princess Azula thing, where she's like the antagonist, but like in a more sinister way. There's also, with a trilogy or any tripartite like work, you can break it into acts for like a short story or just one novel. This is another one of my genius literary analysis terms that I've coined. So it follows a pattern of triumph, tragedy, transcendence. So that's the book 1 is a triumph, book 2 needs to have something tragic, and then book 3 they transcend whatever tragedy or whatever. There's no big tragedy in book 2, it doesn't sound like. There's nothing dark about it.
I think the tragedy is meant to be that like Kitt takes pay from Kai, and neither of them wants her to marry him. I think that's supposed to be the tragedy, but I agree that it is not one.
Okay, well that's stupid. I think there needs to be something more like not that to happen. And I think Peyton being in a moment of weakness in the desert, hunted for months, or I guess a fortnight, not months, still hung up on her guilt and grief about Adina dying, shoving Blair's face into a fire and having that literally haunt her for the remainder of the series. Yes. And then get confronted, book 3 or whatever. I don't know where it would resolve in book 3, but somewhere there. I think that would have a little bit more lifeblood to the trilogy and have it not be so like back-ended where Blair doesn't factor into book 2 at all, despite being one of the only things that Peyton thinks of in book 3. So
I 100,000,000,000% agree. Like Blair should go rogue and be hunting Peyton, and maybe is like even following Kai to try to get to Peyton first. And then once they are chained together, Kai and Peyton, Blair is like hunting them both. And at that point, she's willing to kill Kai to get to Peyton. And then, like you said, we somehow, by one means or another, reach a low moment for Peyton where she, out of desperation or just exhaustion, like brutally tortures Blair, whether she dies or not, and leaves her for dead in the desert. And like the tragedy then is like that Peyton's like weakness of character has been revealed. Like she really is capable of being this bad of a person when she's pushed. Right. I think that's so much more interesting.
That has implications about her character. It has implications about her relationship to Kai and Kitt.
It would give some meaning to the characters always being like, oh, I'm a monster for killing this or that person. Yeah. Like, I'm such a bad person. Like, okay, well, yeah, you are a bad person now. Deal with it. Like, do something about it. Like,
I was just asking, like, what do Pei and Kai have in common even, and maybe, shared trauma bonding. It would still be, like, immature, because trauma bond is not a way to start a relationship, but it would be something other than, I think you're attractive, and you remind me of my sister.
Slash dad. While we're talking about things that could happen in Door, I just want to know more about Door. So, like, when we get there, we know that Ilya and Door are on bad terms because of like Ilya being isolationist or whatever. And we know that Door doesn't like that they sent them a bunch of refugees.
Right.
People recognize Kai when he shows up with his entourage, but there don't seem to be any Dorian or Doric or Dorite guards that like show up and are like, hello, prince of a foreign power. You can't really just be wandering around with your armed military platoon in our city. Like, please come announce your presence before the Duke or something. Like, there's none of that. Like, he is just given free reign. He actually sidelines his entire platoon. He puts them up in a hotel so that he can hunt Peyton personally.
He puts them in a
he's
hotel?
Like, you guys go chill at the Red Roof Inn. I am going to go confront Peyton in a cage match underground. And they're like, you got it, boss. Like, and that's it.
Crazy.
And they die the next time you see them. Like,
That's nuts. I didn't think he put them in a hotel.
Yeah, he literally does. He literally does. What is Door's government? Like, and not asking this because I think that it's an irredeemable failure of the book. Like, it is, but like it's easily fixable.
Right.
Like, all we have to do is have a scene or two where like the authority of Door is like, hi Kai, we acknowledge your presence and like we don't like you, but we're kind of scared of you because you're sort of powerful. Like maybe we'll assist you in your search for this fugitive so that you'll leave our city and she'll leave our city.
Right.
But then maybe Payton also goes to them for help and they're like, well, we kind of don't like Ilya and we might be able to use you as a bargaining chip. Like any of what I'm saying right now, you could take it or leave it, but just doing something with it. Like, why set up this international tension? I was about to say intergalactic tension. Why set up this international tension if you're just going to like not have it happen when it should be happening?
Yeah.
Like when all the prerequisites are met, this world doesn't feel alive.
There should be a daddy council.
There should be a daddy council. There should be a group of daddies that are like, hello, we run Door. We decide what happens here. And nobody gets to the real daddy except through us.
Right. And take what you're saying there and add it to what I was saying about them not sending an envoy to Isram. There's a fundamental immaturity to the way that political stuff is handled. And I think right now that's a failure of the writing. However, these are child kings and child princes running around and trying to understand a system that is basically just like a generation old. So there's a lot of reason, like Kai could have just been running around with an army and not realizing that that is being construed as an intimidation tactic. Or Kitt could send them on the boat to Isram, not realizing that it's a stupid idea to send your most important assets to a foreign country without any sort of safeguard. So, so we could, I don't know what it would look like in the narrative, but we could play with this idea of these being literal, actual traumatized children, kind of like with Zenith, not knowing the systems that they're dealing with and figuring out and failing and learning and being characters in a book. I think there's a lot of room for something like that.
And Callum fits really well into that narrative that we're constructing, because he could either be like a genuine fatherly figure who is helping Kitt out, or he could be taking advantage of Kitt's inexperience, or he could be doing both. He could be giving him a little bit of help, but really using him to get what he wants done politically, because he remembers what life was like before the plagues. He has a sense of what the political landscape is, and now he sees a vulnerability. There's lots of international instability, and he is going to try to come out on top of that situation. And he's in a good position to do it because he is he's well placed in the superhero country, surrounded by like all these other nations that like don't seem particularly strong. Like they don't even know if they have military forces. Like, he's well placed to steamroll them if he wants, but he's also well placed to just like genuinely help Kitt out if we want to make him into a more benevolent character.
Or we do both and have the twist be just as stupid in book 3 when he's secretly Darai.
Could be anything. I just want to see people use their powers more in their daily lives. Like, I know I said a lot about art and architecture, but I would actually kill, not a friend, I would kill an acquaintance of mine IRL to get to see Kitt cool a glass of water with his hand before he hands it to his dying mom or mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like, or warm it up if she prefers that for digestion or whatever. I know some old people like that.
Sure.
I would just like, I would do anything for a restaurant where all of the waiters run really fast. And that's like the gimmick of the restaurant. And it's like Sonic. Like, they bring out the food like really fast to the drive-thru, but they're on horses or something.
Oh,
like,
yeah, and that's why it's called Sonic. You see this a lot with the like, I think with like Lightlark as well, like using powers in funner ways, and I vibe with it and I like it as a suggestion, but I worry about what that would do to the tone to just have like a Sonic drive-in where they're on little roller
that was
skates.
A joke.
No. But like, sorry, to take your joke way too seriously for rhetorical effect. I just worry about like having fun in games with these powers might disservice the tone.
Well, then you can use them in small ways, exclusively in serious situations, like cooling the glass of water.
Sure. Yes, that much I can get behind. I get worried. I get worried is all I'm saying.
Well, Andrew,
I've prepared a statement
Oh, God.
for this fine day. I prepared a statement.
Okay.
We live in a time marked by declining trust in long-established institutions. It's a bit of a cliche at this point, right? Like, rather than using the law as a tool to, I don't know, improve the lives of ordinary people, there are legislatures across the U.S. and the world that are trying to ban the, 6 professional trans women athletes from competing, wasting time and funding on that. They used protecting children as a Trojan horse for that bigotry. Elon Musk has proven that it's, ridiculously easy for unelected people to just enter the government if they're rich and destroy systems because they want to. Universities continue to squeeze students and their parents for every last penny that they own, even as the degrees that they offer in return for that money are worth basically nothing in the job market, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
I am proud to add traditional publishing today to the list of institutions in which I am rapidly losing all faith. Congratulations, Simon & Schuster. You are the ones who have brought this about for me. You, Simon & Schuster, if I may call you by your first names, which are undoubtedly Simon & Schuster, you guys know that Powerless is not good. You know this. You know that it fails to expand the boundaries of human knowledge. You know that it doesn't innovate on the romance and or fantasy genres. You know it doesn't illuminate a unique permutation of the human condition. And yes, low-stakes fantasy with whimsical romance can do any and all of that, whether it's through a unique world-building gimmick, which this book does have, a vulnerable moment between inexperienced lovers, or really just a neat authorial voice. Even the most ostensibly commercial work can offer something worthwhile to any reader. I firmly believe this.
Sure.
And I know that Simon & Schuster know all this. And I know that they know that me and people like me know. Andrew, you're welcome to be excluded in that me, but I didn't want to inflict that upon you, so I'm speaking for myself right here. But the thing is, they don't care. They don't care. When they push out novels like this, whose value lies purely in the ability to make a bank account number go up, they make it really, really clear with their actions where their priorities lie. And that defeats whatever they might say about the power of storytelling. As we've said with books like Lightlark, Powerless sucks. It unequivocally sucks. And it sucks maybe worse than any of the other books that we have attached that label to. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to. As we have proven today through this really extensive critique section, I think, it is really, really easy to elevate this world, its characters, its themes, a couple of orders of magnitude by sitting down and talking for 5 hours, 2 if you cut all of the summary.
Yeah.
If us, again, a couple of asshole podcasters know this and can do this, then the editors, the agents, the readers, anybody employed by and or in the orbit of Simon & Schuster know this as well. I am calling on the publishing industry writ large to please give a shit. Please, please, please give a shit about books like this being given the time that they are being given. Your choice is to give a shit or to be a part of the problem. By platforming utter mediocrity, like Reckless specifically, because it sounds like yours had something going on in it,
I had fun.
I think that publishers are not only profiting off of the dulling of our collective psyches, they're also robbing the author themselves of any opportunity to improve. Because the longer that we prove that this is a viable success model for authors, the longer this is the kind of stuff that will be taking up the most space in the online bookosphere. And I think that is horrendous. And you know what? INB4 English Club is part of the problem. You guys are talking about it for 5 hours. Sure, fine, whatever. I'll give it to you. But I'm right. So, end of statement / end rant. Thank you for your time, Simon & Schuster. You know what you need to do.
I don't think I can top that, Jay. I mean, I completely agree. I don't have any beliefs that contradict what you're saying. I said that about, Sky Shade, but I just can't have that same level of anger for Powerless. And I think that goes to me not reading book 2, and the fact that I like it despite not reading book 2 is probably an indictment of the series and
I would think
myself.
so. Well, at least the series. I don't know about you.
Yeah, something's going to have to change, and I don't know exactly what, other than things that would get us demonetized and on a watch list. Next time we're going to read something that's not YA trash.
Please, can we have outsider art?
I miss Onision.
I miss
Greg Onision on
Onision.
YouTube.
Onision, take me back. That's crazy. That's crazy to say that, but it's true. It's like what we've been saying for the past several episodes. A human being wanted me to come away with some understanding of the world, and even if that is Greg Onision YouTube's understanding of the world, it's still a human being, allegedly.
Until proven otherwise. I mean it, Lauren. I know that it's probably sounds insincere after 5 hours of like the cruelty that I've inflicted upon you, and that's fair. I would understand if you felt like I was being insincere, like backtracking right now to try to make myself sound less mean or something. I stand by all the mean things I have said, and simultaneously, as hard as it may be to believe, I think that if you step back from publishing and invest some time in questioning what it is you aim to achieve with your writing and why, you have the capacity to be a successful author, in the sense that success equals being able to express your vision of and or for the world. But I think you need to abandon the publishing angle of it for a bit, because I think it is the production of a product and the quest for completion in that sense that is causing you to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, no, you're right. Just a little bit more emphasis on craft. It's like what I was saying about coming up to speed. She's got it now. She just didn't have enough space for it. So anything from here just needs a little bit more focus on the craft aspect and, some of the more brass tacks things, and you'll be fine. It's fine. Yeah. We're okay. We're not lost at sea.
No.
We have the capacity to make something out of this. It's just...
You seem able to perceive the world, Lauren, which is more than some of the authors that we have talked about on here.
I believe that you can conjure up fanciful images in your mind.
Literally.
There was no, sign of the novel that I feel like we're circling around ever since Nova's Playlist was discovered.
No.
There's not a lot other than the Freudian thing, but I don't know enough about that to make a judgment call there.
We're not in Iri Geshem anymore.
How tall are you? She blinks in confusion. About 5.5 feet? 5.5 feet, I continue evenly. The terrifying ability to kick a man's ass. Stunning smile, ridiculously stubborn, hair like molten silver, quick to threaten me with a dagger. I smile down at her. Should I go on? What's next? A ballad in my name? Her voice holds a challenge, but her face wears a smile. I pull her closer, my hand fitted into the curve of her waist. Are poets not just fools with fancy words? I duck my face. I duck my face until our foreheads meet. I think I qualified, darling. Oh, Lauren, bold of you to insult those who would engage earnestly with language. I question that decision on your part.
Well, she might fancy herself a poet with this prose of hers.
True. Maybe it's a little bit of self-incisiveness. Maybe she's self-aware.
Okay, Lauren, I think the school resource officer is gone. You can get out from under the table now. They're not taking you away today. I sure had fun today. This was exactly the behemoth of an episode that I thought it would be, but I think at no point did this get dull. There's always something to just chew on with a good old Powerless book, and we had twice the fun as normal.
I had a great time with this episode. It more than paid off for what I had to read. You've given us a great gift, Lauren. In a roundabout way, this novel did what all literature ought to do, which is enrich and alter my experience of the human condition. And it took us 5 hours of being really angry to get there, but I feel a more awake person for having had this conversation. And that would not have happened had I not read this novel. So I'll give you that one.
And that's what all books are about, is being more woke.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode. Thanks again to the Order of the Orb Fox. Well, I don't know if I should thank you for this one, but it is the Order of the Orb Fox's fault that this was a thing.
This video is their thanks, whether or not they want it or like it.
Be sure to join up on our Discord. Please consider supporting if that's something you want to do. But either way, we're just so happy you could hang out with us. And until the next meeting, We'll see you around campus.
Thanks for being here. See you around campus.
Okay, so let me... This is crazy, Jay. You're not ready for this. As a ruler, Kitt continues over the chaos, his voice echoing. Brutality is often needed. So for this trial, it will be a fight. To the death. My breath catches. Throat dries. To the death. I have to kill someone. By definition, a fight to the death requires you killing someone. Hold on. The crowd's responding cheer is lost to the sudden ringing in my ears. I turn slowly toward that glass box, finding a king peering back. Not my friend, not my betrothed, just a king who ordered me to be his killer. Bring out the opponent. My whole body numbs at the king's words. Gasps ripple through the crowd, shock slipping between the fingers that press to gaping mouths. I won't turn around. I can't turn around. The crowd erupts with a sudden, sickening wave of excitement when the king's voice booms over the arena. An ordinary versus every elite. The ultimate test.
Every single one all at once?
Every single one all at once. You can't...
Super Powerless Brothers Ultimate, everyone is here.
Yeah, it's the Genkai arc.